Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 386 of the news, and it's good to see you all in the live chat once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and it has finally happened. A Western country is giving over their own aircraft to Ukraine. It is the first time ever. Give it one more time, Andy. One more time. And a Western country is giving over Western jets to Ukraine. It's the first time ever in history. It's the first time in the course of this war, as a matter of fact. And surprisingly enough, the Polish beat everyone to the punch, and they will be the first one to provide Western aircraft to Ukraine. We do not know if this is going to be a one-time thing from the Polish. It most likely will be, and we do not know if it's going to be accompanied by other Western countries handing over their aircraft as well. But it is incredible to hear that they are going to be giving some of their very own, and sadly they're not Western per se, like a Gripen or a Eurofighter. They are Mig-29s, but they will be giving them over to Ukraine. And so, let me read from the Associated Press a little bit of the details about these aircraft. Poland said Thursday it plans to give Ukraine about a dozen Mig-29 fighter jets, which would make it the first NATO member to fulfill Kyiv's increasingly urgent requests for warplanes to defend itself against the Russian invasion. Warsaw will hand over 4 of the Soviet-made warplanes within the next few days, the president of Poland said, and the rest needed servicing but would be supplied at a later date. The Polish word he used to describe the total number can mean between 11 and 19, so apparently he used the Polish word for somewhere around a dozen. So right now they're getting 4 of them. There will be at least another 9 coming in the future, and maybe even another 15 coming up within the next month or two. So this is incredible news for Ukraine, especially considering that their Air Force, while being very valiant and brave in defending Ukraine's airspace, has taken losses over the course of the war. As far as we know, the Ukrainian Air Force is down to about half of its initial size that it started off the war with. And so these 11 to 19 Mig-29s that will be supplied to them from Poland over the next month or two will definitely help. And the 4 Mig-29s that will be arriving in Ukraine in the next 3 to 4 days, those will be changing history altogether. It'll be like the first Leopard 2A4s arriving in Ukraine on February 24th. It's going to be showing that Western support is certainly growing in its, I guess you could say, its bounds, and also finally cutting down that last bit of red tape that the Russians have put onto arms deliveries that we can send into Ukraine. There has been a massive red line, a huge one, on sending in Western aircraft or aircraft from Western countries. That has not just included modern Western aircraft like the F-16, the F-15, the Eurofighter, the F-18, or anything like that. It meant all Western aircraft, including aircraft like the Mig-29s from Poland. So we're going to be seeing in these next few days, if these arrive in Ukraine without that much of a problem from the Russians or much escalation, it may pave the way for even more support from the West in terms of aircraft to arrive. So we may actually start to see serious discussions and serious planning being done on sending over F-16s, F-18s, or any other similar aircraft. If we do see that, that could certainly be a war-changing outcome for the Ukrainians and provide them an advantage that the Russians will never be able to possess. Speaking of which, the Polish seem to not just be handing over weapons to the Ukrainians, it seems that they're having other countries hand weapons to them, and then in exchange, they hand them a bit of cash. As the Polish Minister of Defense today stated, and we actually have this on our Twitter, peep the Twitter, by the way, that they have bought $1.3 billion worth of equipment from the United States. This included 800 Hellfire, most likely Hellfire 2 missiles, and 96 Apache attack helicopters to bolster the Polish armed forces with. This is a huge number of helicopters, as you may know, and I'll pull this up here. Polish helicopter forces. And let me see here, the Polish Air Force. So apparently they put their helicopter forces under the Air Force and not the Army. So let me scroll down here and let's see what they got. And we can see one of the MiG-29s right here that's probably going to be handed over to Ukraine. Pretty much the exact same kind and everything. But let's go down here. And we can actually see that the Polish still use Mi-17s as well. Not a shocker, considering they're a former Soviet republic. Well, not Soviet republic, but a Warsaw Pact nation. And let's go down to the helicopters. So here we go. Here's the list of helicopters that the Polish Air Force has. They have 11 Mi-8s right here, which also are Mi-17s. They also have 16 Mi-2s, which are small scout helicopters, and they also have W-3s, which are a very similar helicopter to the Mi-2 in terms of what it's supposed to do, and really in its size as well. So mostly scout helicopters and a few transport helicopters. But I have to find out what the Polish army has, because considering how low those numbers are for helicopters, that can't be all of the helicopters they have. Polish army equipment. And let's go here, and let's see what they got. List of Polish land forces equipment. And let's scroll through. And it looks like these... Oh, look, they got the Mossberg 500.
Hey, what do you know?
What do you know? That's actually kind of weird when you think about it, Matthew. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from that. What's funny is that we actually have a Mossberg 500, so seeing that, it's like, what the hell? It's like, that's literally the same on everything, with the same heat shield on it and all that. But anyways, we're going to be moving on down and trying to find if the helicopters are put in the inventory of the Polish army as well. And let's see if they are. Trying to get down to the very bottom of the list. Haven't seen any helicopters yet. Haven't seen them yet still. Here we go. So, as of right now, the Polish army has 44 Mi-2s, 27 Mi-8s, 30 Mi-24s, 4 S-70s, which are the, I guess you could say, like the civilian version of the MH-60. Then they also have some W-3s, 38 of those, and then they have 2 Mi-2s for training, which you can see right there. So their helicopter forces are not that modern in terms of their abilities, considering that really the only purpose-made attack helicopter they have is the Mi-24, and that's getting kind of dated. Getting 96, a whopping 96 Apache attack helicopters is huge for the Polish, and also showing that they may be gearing up for what may potentially escalate into a war that they have to get involved in the future. So very interesting to see, and of course,
And Enforcer, before you move on, also, if you saw underneath that Twitter post, there's also an article saying that Poland's military, I'm not sure who the official was, says he has suitcases full of cash that he wants to spend on military equipment. So he said money's not a problem. They simply need to find the equipment to purchase it, and they're going on a absolute spending spree.
And I did see that, and this Apache purchase with the Hellfires is just, I guess you could say, the latter end of stuff that they've been buying. The Polish have been modernizing their entire ground force with a lot of South Korean equipment. We've actually covered that a while ago, and they're going all out. I think their military spending is going to be one of the highest in Europe before the end of this year, next to the Germans, because their military is skyrocketing in size, ability, and the amount of equipment, and the, I guess you could say, advances that their equipment has within them. So very neat to know, very interesting to see, and we may see that the Polish become the bulwark of NATO forces in Eastern Europe. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that interesting bit of news from the Polish, and we're now going to be moving on over into Russia, because while Poland has, like the Minister of Defense said today, suitcases of money, and they're traveling around trying to figure out how to spend this stuff and getting Gucci belts for their armed forces, the Russians, in the meantime, are getting Gooby belts, which are the ripoffs of Gucci, if you've ever been to Chinatown in New York City. And I gotta say, this thing's kind of funny. I don't know if any of y'all have seen it, but I'm going to show it to y'all, and be prepared to cry. It's kind of sad. Also, I like how the drone is literally called a tramp, because it looks like something that deserves that name. So, here's the video. Also, I'm going to have to mute it. But we can see here that Crux is showing it, and this is the new long-range drone that the Russians are developing at the same time everything else is going on. That's it at the top corner. That stupid looking thing. Tramp drone video released as US spars with Russia. Oh, so scary. Oh my god. It looks like it shouldn't fly. It doesn't look right. A 2-year-old designed this, and Putin said, "My god, you're the smartest man in Russia." And he went, "Yeah, man." He's like, "Quick, put this on the assembly line." Oh god, this thing is awful. Russian news agency RAA Novosti shared a video of the Tramp drone undergoing the final stages of development. The drone is seen taxiing, inspecting, and troubleshooting its control systems and processes before it makes its maiden flight in April of this year. Russian media had first reported in February 2023 that Russia had developed a drone that could fly considerable distances while hauling a significant cargo load. The Tramp drone also has combat capabilities and may be applied in conflict zones where Russia is changed. You heard it here first, the Tramps can fight. You can see that it has a range of 650 kilometers and a cruise speed of a whopping 195 kilometers an hour. If you really press this thing, it may
Wait
be
a minute. Neil Hurst said, isn't that the spirit of St. Louis?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Wait, hang on. Let's pull it up.
Spruce
Spirit
Goose.
of St. Louis. Blade, comrade. We've come up with the latest and greatest in aircraft innovation, comrade. If the picture load, Blade. There. Greatest. Honestly, the Spirit of St. Louis looks a whole lot better than this stupid thing that they made. I mean, like, at least this thing looked kind of okay. This one, though, what the hell is this? I don't know who designed it, but this shows you how bad off the Russians are. And people actually think that they're going to be able to scoop up this drone out of the sea and somehow start producing these things en masse. That's the best they can make right now.
That's sad.
It is, and that's why I have no fear. Even if the U.S. wasn't able to destroy any classified information on that MQ-9, the Russians wouldn't be able to get the classified information out of the MQ-9 because most likely they don't even have modern computers to get the information with. Wait, hang on, what was that about the cargo? The cargo compartment is in the middle of the fuselage with drop-down doors on both sides of the cargo compartment. Wow. So, how do you actually use this thing practically? The drone also has a recess for retractable gear, landing gear located behind the doors. Can Tramp drone help Russia and Ukraine? No. Russia's newest drone is particularly suited for operations in small areas, otherwise ill-suited for takeoffs and landings. Wait a minute, hang on. They're telling me that this stupid thing with shopping cart wheels is going to land in the middle of a pot-marked field in the middle of Ukraine and not nosedive as soon as it goes over the first bump? They're kidding us. That would not happen. Tramp's design includes reinforced landing gear. That's not the first Tramp. With wide tires for takeoff and landing with an integrated something. We can now see the Russian drone can have its wings, engine, and landing gear replaced on the spot. That's if you have the parts. I don't think a normal Russian squad in the middle of the fields of Ukraine is just going to have a spare Tramp wing or a Tramp engine lying around. I mean, usually it's very hard to... Well, I mean, like, then again, the Russian army is filled with Tramps, so I guess they could just replace the Tramp with one of their own guys and maybe fly him off, like, and, just tell him to stick his arms out. But at the same time, they're not having replacement parts just on the front. That would be stupid. So, yeah, that's a little stupid in premise. Further, the drone is reportedly designed to carry out roles considered dangerous for manned aircraft in poor weather. That thing will not survive a rainstorm, I can tell you that. Russia is expected to use the Tramp drone with its long range for extensive surveillance missions as well. Oh, I'm sure they plan on it. I'm sure. Tramp is entering the final stage of preparation for test flights. A regular engine with a large three-bladed propeller will be installed on the car in the near future. Standard landing gear instead of technological ones used for ground taxiing. The drone is complete in the ground test program. Dozens of taxis have already been completed, and the control system has been worked outboard. No. No. Why is Russia publicizing Tramp tests? I don't know. Maybe it's the best thing they have. This video of drone tests comes within days of a Russian fighter jet downing an American drone over the Black Sea. After it collided with it, Russia is now engaged in operations to try and retrieve the Reaper drone, as you can see pictured right there. Also, Ukraine has intensified the use of drones for conducting long-range operations against Russia. I don't know how that has any relevance to the piece of crap they just showed us. Some Russian officials have accused Kyiv of attempting an attack on Gazprom with an aerial uncrewed system. Okay, and? Uh-oh, it's the bricklayer. Russia's defense ministry accused Ukraine of attempting drone strikes against infrastructure within Russia, including at least one near Moscow. Ukraine's security service has shared a video of a Ukrainian kamikaze drone attacking a Russian T-80BV tank. Wait a minute. Why in the world did this channel make it sound like there was only one of these videos? We've seen at least, I don't know, 10 of these in the last week. So why are they acting like, oh, they just finally showed one of these, and now everyone's starting to realize drone warfare is a thing? It's been a thing since day one. So now they're running it into the back of the T-80BV. We can see a Shahed launching right there. Wait a minute. Read this line right here. Russia, which has also used drones heavily in the Ukraine war, would want to be seen as ahead in this field of military tech. Who the hell is Crux?
Would want to be.
I gotta ask, who the hell is Crux? I haven't really heard of them until today, and considering that they put the wordage in this video, how the hell does this thing make them look like they're ahead in the drone game? You're telling me, these people on this channel are telling me that the Tramp drone, and let me type that in again right here. The Tramp drone, imaged here, will make the Russians look as advanced as the United States that has the drone pictured here. It doesn't even look close. Hang on, let's let the picture load. Come on, let's let the fax machine do its job. They're telling us that this drone will make the Russians look like they're on par with this thing. You've got to be kidding me. That's just stupid at that point. I would, if I was the Russians, I would just give up and go home on the whole drone design field, because that doesn't even look in quality to anything we've seen, even the little ones like the Mavic 2s.
Man, if you're a Russian, now's the time to double down. When you're losing, it's time to double down, baby.
Oh, man. Oh, bled, we've got to double down, comrade. When you see the Shahed launching. The Russian Ministry of Defense recently released video appearing to show its troopers using Boomerang VR headset-controlled kamikaze drones. They're a little late to that game, and I like how they just leave it on a hang note like that. Like, they finally did something, and then the video just ends. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And also, I would look at that channel, but honestly, that video was kind of a little garbage, because it painted that Tramp in too much of a good light. And I gotta say, a tramp's a tramp. You know, it's not gonna be good no matter what. Anyways, we're now moving into Moscow because things are going so well for the Russians and they're so ahead of the game, they're now calling up college kids that are graduating college to be conscripted after they get their diplomas. This came out today for the first time ever and was made as an official national announcement, as graduates at Penza State University, along with diplomas, will be handed summons to the military commissariat for service in the Russian armed forces. Oh, buddy, they're doing so well, the college kids have got to get out there and teach everyone how to do algebra. Good on them. Very nice. And so we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on up into St. Petersburg, where we can see that the war is also reaching the metropolitans of St. Petersburg and Moscow as well, as someone was given a mobilization order in the city of St. Petersburg. Now, this isn't something we've seen en masse, and we have seen this happen a couple of times before, but ever seeing anyone get mobilized out of Moscow or St. Petersburg is incredibly rare, especially when you put it up per 100,000 people. Those two areas in Russia are the lowest mobilized. Every other place gets hit heavily by mobilization orders and trying to call up more folks to join and serve in the Russian armed forces, but this one is a little special, a little neat. And so you can see right there, the war is not going well for them at all while they're pulling out the tramps. So we're now going to be moving on into Arkhangelsk, which is, I believe, our last bit of Russian news before we hit the Black Sea and start talking about the Reaper drone. And up in Arkhangelsk, someone went around and interviewed folks, and the Russians said everyone is jealous of Russia while showing off scenes from Arkhangelsk City. So here's the clip. I'm going to have to mute it because it has terrible TikTok music in it. But you can see the Russians saying they envy everything we have, while they show normal sights of what appears to be Detroit, Michigan, but funnily enough, it's Arkhangelsk, Russia. And we see a lot of abandoned buildings. It honestly looks like the war has arrived in Arkhangelsk due to how bad the city looks. They're very jealous of all of our friendship with all the countries. Meanwhile, Russians can't travel anywhere outside of the country because they're barred from visiting anywhere. Of course they envy us, they say as we look at their buildings eaten with termites. I mean, like, man. Dude, Russia's looking like a third world country, man. Bleed. Not good. So with that, that's the end of the clip. But I thought I would show you all that because I thought that one was just a little humorous. Meanwhile, the Russians have taken the entirety of the Black Sea Fleet, whatever is left of it, and they have now sailed full speed into the middle of the Black Sea to try and grab parts. A lot of y'all know about the junkyards around the United States or around the rest of the world where you can go and get parts for your car. The Russians are trying to do the same thing after they took down the MQ-9 drone in the middle of the Black Sea. But we did get a video today released by the Department of Defense here in the United States showing some of the final footage from the drone before it was taken down by the Su-27. Now, this footage we were able to confirm as authentic, and one thing we would like to point out about this drone as compared to the other is that first, the cloud cover is non-existent down here. And the drone was flying in an orbit, from what we understand, in the typical area that you would find the drones whenever they fly for surveillance. It was flying in an orbit. And we see that the cloud cover that was seen in the alleged first video is not there whatsoever. The Su-27 is now coming up onto the drone. It's now dropping its fuel. And notice this as well. The way this Su-27 is passing this MQ-9 drone, one, is flying quite quickly, and two, the pilot can probably hardly at all, to say it the best way I can, see the drone, because the cockpit is almost tilted entirely away from the drone at about a 40-degree angle, so they cannot see the drone. It flies over, dropping the fuel right over the MQ-9. It messes up the camera a little bit. We see it looking back there a little bit, looking around. And we can now see the next Su-27 coming up. Also, note how the time of day is different in the video as well from the original first alleged video. They did not stay out here long. From what we understand, the entire confrontation lasted, I believe it was less than an hour. So it's not really like it could have started at midday and then gone into the afternoon. It all happened in the afternoon like we're seeing here in this clip. We now see the Su-27 coming up and dropping fuel again, but this time you can tell it got a little close and it bodied the MQ-9, and that's where the footage ends, right there. We can now see
I
the
wonder
flag.
what the objective was supposed to be. They're dumping fuel on it for like what reason? Were they going to try to like set it on fire or something?
I'm not really sure. Also, wait a minute, hang on. We could see this in the last clip right here. Notice how close the Russian got to the MQ-9, because you can actually see a bent propeller blade right there.
Oh yeah, that thing's bent right back.
Yeah, and that one's bent as well. So it looks like they clipped the rudders on the MQ-9 and also clipped the propellers as well. And instead of it coming up under the MQ-9 and hitting it, it actually kind of bodied it from above in a turn and kind of came down and hit it. Someone said, note how fake this video is. This came out from the Department of Defense, though. That's just like, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, like, the Department of Defense put out the video saying these are the last moments of the drone, and I wouldn't doubt that. So now we can see it coming up again, just to look at it one more time. And we see it flying in. And also notice another thing. The camera quality on this is, you can tell it's not forced. The camera is of a slightly lower resolution than you would normally find on, I guess you could say, a civilian-made MQ-9 Reaper, if you all get the joke. It's like 480p. And you can tell that this isn't being forced onto the film. This is the way the camera filmed. And that's something that, in my opinion, makes this seem a little bit more valid than the other video that we saw that was filmed in 4K Ultra HD from the Su-27 that for some reason flied by an unmarked MQ-9. And we can see it hit right there. And also another thing that makes this a little bit more authentic, because once again, I don't know why people are saying this one's fake, because unlike the last one that came from the Russians, this one came out from the Department of Defense. So, you know, it's not really like the Department of Defense is into peddling fake videos. I don't think they sat there and said, quick, someone get to the lab, although we have the footage from the drone, and make fake footage immediately. They have the footage, so they just released part of it and showed us what happened. And so then the video footage cuts off, and then it comes back on. After the Su-27 collided with the rear part of the Reaper, you can see the propellers all messed up. And also, one thing, sadly, that we were not able to confirm in this video, Matthew, that would have been the death knell in the other one, was did it have the winglets on the far edges of the wings? Because if it didn't, then that means the other video was completely fake. If it did, then we could say it was at least a very good facsimile, one or the other. But anyways, that's the end of that footage right there. And after the drone went down, and it appears that it didn't go down violently in a spiral, it may have glided down to the sea floor and then just kind of, I guess, ditched on the sea, perhaps? We saw that the Black Sea Fleet mobilized everyone in Sevastopol, sent them out there, and on satellite footage today, we saw the entire Russian Navy that's in the Black Sea out there combing the area trying to find the remnants of the MQ-9. And so we can see right there several of the ships. Sadly, I can't really identify which ones these are. They actually look like the smaller surface vessels in the fleet. So let's see if we can pull up the Black Sea Fleet and take a look at what
I heard they have the ship that was trying to recover the Moskvas out there trying to get it too.
Yeah, the Commune. I believe that's the big one that's right there. But I don't know about the smaller ones. So let's see what other ships would be joining them out there if we can find the list here. So surface ship division, definitely not that one. Maybe the Mercury. The Mercury may be out there because it looks like they sent a whole bunch of smaller surface ships out there. So let's see. It's not the Orsk or anything because some of these were sunk way early on in the war. And maybe some of these sweepers, like this Nataya 1 or the Alexandrits. Let me see if I can get that up right there. Like these, that may have been what went out there to go and try and recover parts of the drone. So it looks as though they're out there first. We did hear that the Turks did give permission to the U.S. Navy to pass through the Bosphorus and Dardanelles to make their way into the Black Sea and start trying to recover the drone, but that was given to us way too late. The Black Sea Fleet's already out there where the drone is, and they're currently going to be in the process of recovering it. We won't ever get close to it because one thing I can guarantee you is that the Russians are going to try and create a security perimeter around this little fleet they have out there looking for the drone. And if the U.S. Navy gets close, they'll probably have aircraft buzz our fleet or our ships and try and force them to stay away or turn back. And they'll probably try and escalate the situation until we back off. Then in response to all of this, after they took down our drone, and you can see it on film, we then said that we're going to be altering the course that our drones take. Instead of taking them that close to Crimea, they're going to be moving a little bit further away and orbiting farther away from Russian airspace, although it's all in international airspace. So that's a little dumb in my opinion, and I believe that shows a bit of a sign of weakness on our end. If anything, we should have started sending manned surveillance aircraft out there, escorted by fighters, in my opinion, to send a little bit of a message that we won't be dealt with and we won't be messed with in the Black Sea and international airspace. But of course, that is what we're dealing with right now. That is the news. And with that, we're now going to be moving on from the drone news, which is very weird and interesting in its own right. And we're now going to be moving on into Ukraine itself. Well, actually, I forgot. There is a little bit more news left in Russia, in Rostov-on-Don in particular. Down here in Rostov-on-Don, we saw that a fire broke out in the night. A large fire, as a matter of fact. And we saw this blaze from the balcony of someone's apartment building. So let me show you all this clip. You know, I see the fire out there in the distance. It's a nice roaring inferno. We don't really know what that one was, but we did see that when daylight broke, there was a massive fire on the border guards building in Rostov-on-Don, but I believe that this one may be different because the locations in both of those films don't look to be similar. This one's in an urban area, the other one looks like it was in the middle of a rural area. But you're going to see right here, and let me make sure I get the name correct, the building of the border service of the SFB is on fire, right there. You can see it. Clearly not helping.
That quite unfortunate.
Quite unfortunate. I guess they won't be checking many papers. They'll be watching the papers fly off into the breeze and get turned into ashes from the fire. Also, it looks like an explosion happened down there because if you look, there's a lot of debris that's like flung out of the building this way. So it may have been a bombing. You see the fire continuing to burn when you see the fire brigade has finally shown up. And with that, that's the end of the clip. It then repeats from there. But I don't think the fire brigade will be having a really easy time putting out this fire. Kind of like the guys at Chernobyl, Matthew. it looks like they raised the power a little too much, and the fire brigade showed up long after they were needed. Speaking of fire brigade at Chernobyl, we got some interesting fan mail today, and I wanted to make sure to mention it because we were able to get the packages from the post office today. They were both so large that they didn't drop them off in the P.O. box. They tried to bring them to our house and then couldn't, so there was a whole process of trying to get them back. We got them, though, today, and we got one from James Reyes, and we also got one. We also got one from a viewer I'm not going to name because their name on the package was not one I've seen in a live chat before, and it was their actual name. So I don't know if they want us to say who their name was, but we did get from that viewer, the one which we will not name, a massive pack of Keurig K-Cups of the Starbucks Pike Roast Medium Roast variety. Pretty nice, and I got to thank you so much for sending those. And also from James Reyes, and this is what ties into Chernobyl, he actually sent us some pictures of him and his wife in the Chernobyl exclusion zone standing on top of some of the buildings in Pripyat, which was pretty cool, along with a map of the exclusion zone and a stamp that was on it showing that the Ukrainian government acknowledged that he had actually entered the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and written on the paper was how many millisieverts of radiation he received while being in the zone. So that was actually really cool, really crazy little gift right there. Not only that, he sent us, and hopefully the Fed doesn't get us for this one, Matthew, a counterfeit Russian $20 bill that was so crappily done. It was terrible. Like the dollar didn't even really look like a dollar that well. It said on the bottom, it said like 20, I saw something like 20 dollops, like it was spelled DOLLAPS, which the P letter stands for R in Cyrillic, so it would say dollars if you did pronounce that letter as properly as it was supposed to be in Cyrillic. But it said dollops in English, so I don't really think anyone would have taken that as legal tender here in the U.S. Also, it had giant red stamps on it showing that it wasn't, legal tender anymore, and you could buy it as a souvenir. Another interesting thing that he sent us was a bunch of hryvnias, which are the Ukrainian pretty much version of the dollar. He sent us a 100, a 50, I think a 20, a 10, a 5, and a 1. So we got the entire currency set. We also got some Ukrainian hryvnia coins. And he sent this really cool Imperial Russian coin from 1753 that would have been used to buy and sell things in Ukraine during that time. He also sent us a whole bunch of snacks as well that were from Ukraine. So it was like an entire package. It was incredibly cool. And I got to thank James Reyes for sending that because it was really neat looking at it all. And we're like, man, this is pretty freaking cool. And so I've got to thank you so much once again. So much to both of y'all for sending, one, the Starbucks K-Cups, and two, all of the little knickknacks that you sent us to take a look at. And I got to thank y'all.
Thanks.
Yeah, huge thanks. And I got to thank y'all so much for doing that because that was really cool for us to look at. It really made our day. I'm a huge fan of old stuff like the coin. And I was like, wow, that's so cool because it had the the Romanov eagle on it, if y'all know what I mean. And it also, when you flipped it over, it said something in Cyrillic and then it said 1753 below it. And I was like, man, that's so cool because it's older than, that coin is older than the United States. So I was like, that's just wild. Anyways, it's now time for us to move on out of Rostov-on-Don and move on from our little fan mail information. And it's now time for us to move on into our location unknowns. And they're juicy today. They've really got the juice. Call this stuff, what should we call it? Call this stuff simply natural or whatever, because this stuff is simply juice. So with that, I'm going to be moving on into our location unknowns, where we saw the Ukrainians enduring a grab barrage today somewhere near the front lines as the Russians try and bombard them out of their position. But before we get into that news, Matty's been running polls, and it looks like there's been a lot of unanimous results on some of these polls while I've been watching them unfold over on the second screen. So real quick, Matty, guide us through those polls and tell us what people have been thinking about the drone and everything else that we put up a poll for.
All right, so today's been an extremely busy news day, as it has been all week, and we have some very interesting polls like the enforcer mentioned. The very first one says, the U.S. says Poland's decision to send jets to Ukraine will not sway their decision-making, and what are your thoughts? 25% said the USA must feel guilty about it, 14% said unsure, 19% said, that's just talk, and 42% said the USA is probably going to send. Now, I was kind of surprised to see the U.S. come out and address it the way they did today. They kind of came out in a sort of dismissive way, they weren't really trying to downplay what Poland did, but they were trying to distance themselves from it. And it came across to me as like maybe they felt guilty that a smaller country like Poland is sending jets and the big country, the United States, isn't sending jets. So I'm going to go with the 25%. I think the USA feels guilty about it and feels a little silly that we're not sending jets at this point, or at least the spokesman did. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would definitely agree with that. I would say it looks really silly that Poland, which is way down on the tier of important European countries, and I'm not disparaging any of our Polish viewers, but I'm saying that off of an economic scale, the Western world is constructed something like this, and we'll be including East Asia in this because Japan and South Korea also fall within, I guess you could say, the Western world at this point. The United States is number one. Japan is number two economically. But in terms of actual political importance in the West, the UK usually falls as number two. Then Germany follows in a close number three or a number four, depending, well, really number four, depending on how you tier up Japan and the United Kingdom, although the United Kingdom's economy is smaller than both of them. It's just for some reason they're like our pals, so they get like preferential status in the decision making. And then France is number five. Italy is, well, actually, I'm sorry, South Korea, I think, is number 6. Italy would be somewhere around number 7. Spain would be around number 8. And then Poland is somewhere around number 9 or so. They're kind of down on the list a little bit. You would think that a country that had a much more economic sway in the Western world would have been the first one to step up and provide the Western aircraft, for example. And also that list was not perfect, y'all, because I just realized that I didn't even include Canada in that list, and Canada is in there, and also Australia. So just saying that's a rough list. Don't sit there and go, hey, wait a minute, you didn't include my country, because I just realized I didn't include a lot of them in that list. I'm trying to come up with one right off the bat, but still the point stands. Poland is way down the list in terms of its economic size and what it should be able to afford to give. Yet they're giving aircraft that no other country has even stepped up to provide at all. And that's a big deal to me, especially considering that the United States is the, I guess you could say, the bank of the entire Western world. If anyone needs anything, they come to us and ask, and we usually pay out if if the bank's still there.
If the money's there.
Yeah, if the bank's still there. But that's something that's a little interesting to me, and we have plenty of aircraft we can give them. We've got old stuff that we could give them. We got new stuff we could give them. We've got used stuff. I mean, we got anything and everything we could give them. And it's absolutely goofy to think that the Polish are providing them with MiGs, and nobody else is even in the ballpark of providing an aircraft. That's why it looks like they came out in that dismissive tone today, is because they are embarrassed, most likely on a governmental level, that they're being out-prestiged by the Polish in terms of the support that they're able to give, and it's not really giving a good precedent to the country that is the leader of the Western world. So maybe they'll change their mind in the future. I'm sure there'll probably be a reversal at some point in the future to that decision that they'll eventually send Western aircraft. It just seems as though they're doing a little bit of waffling right now. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the second poll says Poland goes on a military spending spree with suitcases of money buying equipment. And what are your thoughts? 70% said Poland is preparing for war. 20% said Poland is going to share with Ukraine. 7% said it's just regular upgrades, and 3% said unsure. And I'm definitely leaning toward Poland is preparing for war. And I would say it's a sensible precaution because of the tensions rising with the U.S. between Russia, and also the fact that Poland just provided jets to Ukraine, which could be inflammatory and cause Putin to decide to lash out at Poland. That would be a very wild move to make, but you can't rule anything out, and it's always good to prepare for the worst. But I kind of find it funny that the guy in the military said he has suitcases of money. I guess they're ready to spend some big bucks. But Enforcer, what say you?
You know, Matthew, when the war started off, the Germans said, "We will be driving our tanks through the Polish land," and the Polish went, "Huh?" And then the Russians said, "We have plans to take over parts of Poland," and they went, "Huh?" And then they were like, "Oh God!" And then they started investing in their military. They're like, "Not again, not again!" And they're like, "This is not happening a second time." And then they started buying everything. I mean, like, hell, they're buying K2 Panthers from South Korea. And let me K2 Panther Poland. Let me pull that up real quick. Here's the Panthers that they'll be buying from. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, correction. they will be producing in Poland, but they're a entirely South Korean design, and they're taking the company that produces these tanks, which is Hyundai Rodam, and they're opening up factories in Poland to produce hundreds of these things. So they're modernizing their tank force, they're modernizing their artillery, they're modernizing the helicopter force, they're also buying aircraft from the United States to modernize the Air Force. They're in a massive military spending program right now to modernize every single facet of their military. Now, I gotta say, huge kudos to the Polish, because the Polish are not going to wait to see if anyone's going to react or come to the day to save them. And I guess you could say that is a historical lesson for them, and something that's probably heavily on the mind of the Poles, that in the Second World War, while the British and French guaranteed their independence and went to war with Germany when the Germans invaded Poland, nobody actually came to save the day for them. They ended up getting taken over and invaded by not just the Germans, but also the Soviets at the same time. And so I would have to say it's probably a historical lesson on their end, where they're like, we will not repeat the mistakes that our forefathers made in this country. We're not going to sit there and hope that larger, stronger powers come to our aid. We're going to plan to stand on our own. Of course, that won't be the case. They have the entirety of NATO to stand on, and also there are more targets than just Poland. There's also the Baltics up here to the north that are right on the Russian border as well. But it's great to know that the Polish are going leaps and bounds above what they really need to do to get their military up to a spec that it may be one of the largest and most powerful land forces in Europe. It may even beat out, hell, the French, the Germans, and the British by the time they get done with this modernization project. In fact, hell, I'm just thinking about it. I don't think the British Army has that many helicopters at all. British Army equipment. Let me check that out. List of equipment of the British Army. Yeah, when I say the British Army, one has to remember the British Army is somewhere around 80,000 strong right now, so it's not really the biggest land force in Europe, but still, they're usually the ones with a decent amount of equipment. So let's check. They have 227 Challengers. What the hell? I'll have to come back and check on that one. They have a decent amount of CRVTs, which are Scorpions. Pretty cool little vehicles. Let's see, Warriors, they have hundreds of those. They have hundreds of Bulldogs, which is just a heavily upgraded M113. Well, actually, sorry, it's an F433 something, I think. Anyways, moving on down. Oh, they got Fuchs? They got 11 of these? That's cool. I didn't know that. Anyways, we're trying to get on down to those freaking helicopters, man. I'm getting distracted by everything. Okay, so here we go. Aircraft. They have 50 Apaches. So if this order goes through, the complete order that the Polish have on paper right now, the Polish helicopter force, the attack helicopter force, will be around... And let me make sure the Wildcats... Oh, they still got Wildcats in service? Wow, wild. I thought they retired all of their Lynxes, but apparently they've brought them back as a Wildcat, at least for a little while. On paper, their helicopter force would almost be twice the size of the British Army's helicopter force if that order went through and they didn't downsize it any time in the future. So that gives you a little bit of a scale of how big the Polish Army plans on becoming in their attack helicopters alone. If we compare that to French Army equipment, because the French have, I believe, the largest ground army in Europe right now, at least in the Western world, and I may be wrong with that. So let's scroll down. Someone's probably go, oh my god, you're so wrong, and then I explain who it really is. But let me scroll on down, and helicopters. Man, the French have got some cool stuff, like these little VBL things.
Yeah, it looks like a ATV mixed with like an armored truck.
Yeah, man, they've had these things forever. And I think these things came out in like the late 70s. Actually, the mid 80s. So I was kind of close. But let me move on down. Trying to find the helicopters. Because I believe the French use exclusively the Eurocopter, but I don't know how many they have. So as far as the attack helicopter force, they have some Gazelles, which can be like light attack helicopters. They're not full-blooded, full-fledged attack helicopters. They can only carry like a small amount of unguided rockets or something like that, so they don't really count. The French only have 67 Eurocopter Tigers, which means that the Polish, once again, would have the largest attack helicopter force in Europe when being compared to the French, which, as of right now, I believe they are the largest ground army in Europe. So that gives you an idea of how big their modernization and upscaling project is, and I believe the whole of Europe will start to look at the Poles for military protection and security instead of the French, the Germans, or the British, which the British kind of got out of the picture a few years ago. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next poll says the Pentagon says they will quote unquote reassess drone routes to avoid escalation with Russia. And what are your thoughts? 60% said that is a bad and weak response. 7% said unsure. 26% said maybe they know something else that we don't. And 8% said good, we got to avoid World War III. And this response from the Pentagon is very disappointing to me. I'm shocked that it came out of the United States. We were flying that drone over international waters, over international airspace, and it was harassed and ultimately downed by a hostile force. And our response is we're going to not fly there again. That doesn't seem appropriate whatsoever. I'm definitely with the 60%, and hopefully the U.S. won't actually take that position, and hopefully it's just talk. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that is a really bad position to take. Usually I don't make any comments on what the U.S. military does because, of course, for some odd reason, military decisions start to become political at some point because people start going, they should, and like politics has anything to do with strategy or our presence in the world. I would have to say that is a poor decision by the U.S. military and also the government to reroute the drones to a further area away from Ukraine. Sure, they'll maybe be able to see everything they need to see from that distance as well, but it's not about being able to do the job. It's about sending a message. You see, the Russians messed with our toy. You know, we were flying around our little RC plane in the middle of the Black Sea. They ran into the thing and took it down. That requires a response. I would say that response would be to send a U.S. fighter wing to Romania and then send up aircraft to escort that drone wherever it may be in the Black Sea. Hell, I would even take the drone and fly it closer to Russian airspace than it already had been with fighter escort. It's not a good look to sit there and go, we're going to take the drone and we're going to move it back a little ways so that way the Russians don't get angry. Because it makes the Russians look, and it also makes the Russians think they actually have some kind of power or leverage over the United States, and they can bully us around in the Black Sea, even in international waters and international airspace. So in my opinion, I would say that we need to be a little bit more aggressive with that. We need to move the drone's flight path closer to Russian airspace, and we also need to give it a fighter escort, so that way the Russians think twice about messing with it. Or at least it will probably create a scenario where the Russians have to back down, because obviously they can't really face up against the United States. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, in my opinion, and of course, if y'all like that, idea right there that I said, my opinion on the matter, y'all can always vote for me for president in 2040, because if that was a good idea in y'all's opinion, I'll be making plenty of decisions like that as president of the United States. Of course, not going into all-out war, but making sure that we don't get stepped on. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll, so we're moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have that $50 donation from none other than Jesus UCSB, member of NAFO, and he says, voila, I think this whole Poland thing is mind games, wink wink. U.S. government, we don't want to escalate, and Poland, can you, wink wink, buy jets for Ukraine? Viva Mexico, Viva LSA, and hashtag NAFO.
And thank you so much for the support. Also, long live the Lee Spring Army, and also, hello to the NAFO folks, the NAFO fellas, and hola. I would say that the Polish thing is kind of mind games, but kind of not. The Polish are huge fans of arming the Ukrainians because of the Ukrainian, and you got to think about this from a Polish perspective. Because I'm always talking about it from an American strategic perspective. Every single country has a little bit of a different way of looking at this. The Polish are looking at the situation as follows. We border Belarus. Belarus is a pain to border. It's an absolute nightmare. We do not want our borders to increase. Also, they border Kaliningrad, which is also a bit of a problem. If the Russians win in Ukraine, then the Russian border also extends to the rest of our eastern borders, all the way down to the south. That would be a huge headache, huge nightmare for Poland. So Poland would rather arm the Ukrainians and make sure that the buffer zone is somewhere out here, or Ukraine itself is the buffer zone, instead of having that buffer zone right on their border, where they're then the buffer zone. So that's why they're looking at this and they're going, we don't care if anyone else gives them fighter jets or anything for that matter. We're going to arm and supply them because we don't want that to become our problem in the future. We don't want that to be a constant thorn in our side and something that the government always has to be working to try and thwart or avoid. That would be a huge pain in Poland's side, and that's why they are pretty much adamant on sending anything and everything they can, and that's why they were really adamant early in the war on pretty much getting involved immediately, because they're like, we would rather fight and fight the Russians in Ukraine to make sure that they never get on our borders where we may have to fight here in the future. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Jesus UCSB, and I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And also, thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Jose Diaz, who puts in a 20 and says, greetings from Arecibo, Puerto Rico, at Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, and my LSA brothers and sisters. I have family visiting from Florida and Ohio, and I wasn't in yesterday, and I won't be in today and tomorrow, and I'll be back Saturday. God bless.
Oh man. I hate to hear that. But hello to Jose, our commandant. Oh, well, actually, I believe he's the, I think he's the Lord Governor, isn't he, of Puerto Rico?
I think he is. Yes.
Yeah, I think he is the Lord Governor. And I thank the Lord Governor for his presence tonight. I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I hate to hear that you won't be watching. Of course, I hope you have the best of fun. It sounds like you're going to be having a lot of fun. Probably that those parts of the family haven't seen you a lot since one of them lives all the way in Ohio. I wonder why they're visiting right now. It's like, boy. It's like, boy, the air's getting a little thick around here. Maybe it's time for a vacation. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Jose. I hope you enjoy hanging out with your family, and we'll be more than happy to have you back whenever you feel like it. Make sure to come back, though, on Saturday, because everyone will be missing you, the Lord Governor of Puerto Rico. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we'll be moving back into the location unknown news.
All right, and this one goes to Cindy Mitchell, who puts in a 20 and says, do you feel that the Tramp drone is designed after a Chinese takeout box opened?
Yes, yes, I would say so. I would agree with you there. The Tramp drone. Whenever I type this in, I feel so leery because I feel like it's going to type up something else. Wait a minute. First video of long-range Tramp. Also, by the way, these are the drones that Ukraine is able to make themselves right here. That's one of them. You know, and that's what the Russians can... Yeah, that's what the Russians can make. I'm the biggest bird. I'm the biggest bird. Why in the world does that thing look like it would sing that song? Oh, man.
They'll probably play that on the loudspeakers as like torture.
Dude, you hear that stupid engine, probably a 2-stroke motor, and then you just hear it behind it as quiet as possible. I'm the biggest bird. I'm the biggest bird. As it's flying through the air. Shoot it down, please. You could shoot that thing down with a dishka, probably, and it would come down like a rock. But... yes,
big caliber for that one.
I would say this thing looks like a Chinese takeout box that's been opened with wings. Like, that's what it looks like. It looks terrible. Who the hell designed this thing? I mean, like, I have to say this. Aesthetics do a lot for propaganda purposes. This is certainly not doing a lot for Russia's propaganda. You know, we're best in the world. All other countries are run by little girls, and then they make this thing. It's like, that. No, that does not make you look strong. This makes you look like the people in your country, like, pick their nose in the design bureaus every day, and they come up with garbage. You know, like, this is just absolute garbage. And you know what it'll probably be used to do? They'll load up that little cargo hold, and they'll go, quick, take the rusty AK. Quick, take the rusty AKs to the place at the front. They need them immediately. Yeah, it's coming down. And then they take this piece of garbage. And also, look at this, Matthew. Very rusty AK-47 airgun restoration. That thing's gone, all right? That thing's not coming back. Yeah. I don't care if you restore it. That thing ain't coming back. Also, Matthew, that's another AK that they'll be sending to the front lines.
Together by string.
Yeah, quick, take improvised AK to front line immediately. Doesn't even have trigger guard. Yes, comrade, bleed. And then they send that garbage. But yes, I thank you for the support, and I definitely agree with you. The Tramp looks like garbage. Just straight up garbage. Honestly, it kind of looks like a tramp. So with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that comment fairly well. And with that, we're moving out of the question segment and on into the news. Because today we saw a grab barrage landing close to Ukrainian forces in an unknown location. And it was then deleted by the moderator of that thread, and so sadly, we cannot see it anymore. We're now going to be moving on into our next clip, where we also saw a T-72EA that the Czechs have been building inside of the Czech Republic, or Czechia, I believe it's called nowadays, and we saw it right here on the move in Ukraine, although everything else around it was blurred out. Uh-oh. Call of Duty music is playing. We're going to have to mute that. And that's the end of the clip. And I knew, Matthew, you said it in the 10-minute countdown. I knew we would get it, Matthew. I saw it. It's not a Western jet. I'd be damned. It's like, it's a jet from the West. It's a Western jet. But anyways, there's the T-72EA. Of course, a nice help for Ukraine. We haven't seen a lot of Western armor hit the front lines yet, but this is incredibly beneficial to the Ukrainians because it keeps their armored forces replenished if they ever take losses, and if they haven't taken enough losses, it helps their armored forces to grow, which is certainly something they'll be needing if they want to conduct more offensives in the future, as tanks help in those offensives. They are offensive vehicles, after all. With that, we're now going to be moving on from this a little bit of location unknown news and on into our next one, where we saw some Ukrainian training. And I gotta say, these guys have, like, the history of weapons in their hands. So, here they come out of the APC. They got a DP-28. This guy runs out with RPG that's been fired. This guy, he runs out holding the MP-40.
Jeez.
Honestly, though, pretty good choice. I have shot one of those things in real life. The recoil is non-existent. It is an amazing gun. I would actually recommend carrying one of those in the modern world. It's just that good. At short range, though. We now see one guy climbing out with an AK. We now see a guy climbing out with an SVT? An SVT-40. SVT-40 for sale. How much are those things nowadays? $1,500. Good God! That man's got a collectible in his hands right there, like a real one. Like, the MP-40, yeah, that's collectible, but this, like, I don't even know where the hell they got one. It's like they were a former part of the Soviet Union or something. But with that, and that's the end of the clip, and very interesting to see the hodgepodge of weapons that they're using in training. With that, we're moving on into our next bit of news, where we also saw the Ukrainians receiving a brand new armored personnel carrier. We see them unloading it right here, fresh off the crane. The music immediately hitting. We can see it's an Oncilla. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let's see if I can unmute it.
Використовується в бойових завданнях, вивозу десанту, прикривання і в тяжких умовах з тяжким ґрунтом. Десанту 6 чоловік, плюс стрілок, 7-й, водій і командир. В общій сумі 9 чоловік. Броня другого рівня станагу НАТО витримує 7,62 бронебойний та 6 кг підриву. Двигун тут знаходиться Avdiivka, 210 кінських сил. Це для ведення вогню стрілком. Тобто 12,7. В'їзд даний автомобіль десь приблизно до 45, це по бездорожжю при включених мостах, роздатках. На даний момент розробка ця в Україні була запущена у 2019 році. Таких машин вже 30, які вже воюють і дуже добре себе показали на полі бою, врятували життя. І на даний момент цей зразок, він дороблений, він допрацьований, в ньому дуже багато змін. Які зробили зміни, я називати не буду, але дуже-дуже добрий.
Let me hear the music hitting again for literally 1 second so we can get that copyright. Thank you. And so that's the end of the clip, but a very interesting little armored vehicle and very nice looking. This thing is called the Oncilla Armored Car. So, the Oncilla Armored Car. Let's take a look at this thing. The armored car. I clicked the wrong one. The Dozor B. This is another one of them right here. That one actually looks different. I don't know if it's the paint job. Let's go back and look at this one again. Being unloaded on the crane. And wait a minute, we want to go back here. And nope, it's actually the same. Same one, same shape and everything. I thought this was maybe a different variant. It must be the paint job throwing me off. Man, that camouflage, it does wonders. I can't even see the thing, you know? But anyways, that is a Ukrainian-made APC. They've been in service since July of 2016, and only 24 of them, according to Wikipedia, have been built. A fairly low number, especially for an armored car, but these things look nice, and it's really cool to know that the Ukrainian arms industry has continued on producing these things, and it looks like one of these was actually sold to Poland. So the Polish are actually an operator of one Dozer B, and Senegal has 2 of them. That's kind of weird, you know, like, out of the whole world, Matthew, the people in the Dozer office, you know, that are making these cars, someone from Senegal just walks in, I would like 2 of these, please. Why? You know, reasons. Okay. It's like, all right, then, I guess. And they just get them. They're like the only operator in the world outside of Poland and Ukraine. But anyways, really neat vehicles, really nice to see them, and hopefully it's as good in its armor protection as all of the Western armored cars and vehicles that we've seen in the fields of Ukraine. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, where we saw parts of the T-90M on display. And look at that. We're looking at the inside of a thermal visor of the T-90M, the best tank the Russians have, and it's been dissected and put on this table for us to look at. That's very nice.
Why does it look like a projector in a schoolyard or something?
You know what it looks like? It looks like one of those smartboard projectors that used to be in every single classroom in America. Oh man, those things never worked. Those things never worked either. They always had to calibrate them every 5 minutes, so you never got to use them really. Then they just got used as a projector with someone on the computer. It wasn't as interactive as it was supposed to be. But here we can see one of the display screens. It looks like most likely for the gunner or the commander. I can't really tell. But you can see it right there. In the next picture, you can once again see what appears to be the IR optic that was on top of the turret. Let me see if I can actually get a picture of the T-90M to show you all this stuff. So, let's see here. Go right here. Come on. All right, so it actually looks like that little piece, this one, looks like that right there.
Interesting.
But I can't really say for certain. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. Anyways, we can also see the gunner's sight actually.
Sound like such a weak version of that.
Well, I didn't do the voice or anything. I was just like, I get no respect around here. Anyways, moving on to the next one, where you see another computer chip. I can't really tell you all a lot about computer chips because, you know, I don't really know a lot. Is that Texas Instruments? Oh, they're done for. They're done.
What, does it really say that?
Yeah, it has Texas Instruments logo on it, and they've been sanctioned. Remember what I said at the beginning of the war? They were sanctioned. So that shows you how badly they're going to be hurt. Their own tanks are being run off of Texas Instruments equipment. And they can't buy that stuff anymore, so they're just running out of the stuff.
Wow. I'm assuming they got that before the war broke out.
Yes, of course. They did get it before the war broke out. And that also gives you an idea of how much they'll be hurting for a little bit of equipment, I guess you could say. Also, I love to see this. I love to see it, guys. Love to see it. Our viewer numbers are fluctuating like no tomorrow. We went all the way up to 6.2 thousand like 5 minutes ago, and we're now all the way down to 5.2. And then the control board shows us that the viewership is remaining consistent. Don't know what YouTube's doing anymore these days because their internet connection's fine. It hasn't said anything has been a problem tonight. But YouTube's doing its thing, as you all know. Anyways, we're now going to be moving on from this little bit of news here. Well, that picture, and on to our next one, where we also saw all the computer chips laid out. Let's take a look at this. Matthew, what do you get from this?
It looks like old junk, if I'm being straight up.
I'm gonna level with you. I'm not gonna lie, it looks like straight up junk. We're gonna move on to the next picture, and we can see more computer stuff. We can see a small microwave over here to the left side of the screen. Very nice. Moving on to the next picture, we can also see the microwave up close. This thing is actually called a radiostanzia. It's a radio station. R16825U-2. So it's a radio. That's what the radio looks like. Just in case y'all are wondering. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next one, where we can also see some more interesting computer parts. I'm not a computer techie at all, so I have no idea what these parts look like, but I thought I would show them to y'all because this stuff looks like it's straight out of an Atari. Moving on to our last bit right here, we can then see some of the other parts all put out on the same part of the table. Once again, fairly interesting to see, although I don't know anything about it. So now I'm going to sound like one of those CNN reporters that goes to the Arms Expo and goes, look at the high-tech green of the computer circuitry board. That is high-tech. It shows that the Russians are really on the cutting edge, y'all. Really cutting edge. You know what? I don't know. Actually, we can't get copyrighted. I've got to show y'all this because this is something that's always made me laugh, and this is what I'm quoting so that we all know what it is. So let me go find it. CNN, new Russian jet. Let me go find it. Oh man, and it's being inundated with the drone crap from a few days ago. I gotta go find it. New Russian jet expo. Let me put that in. Maybe it'll like. It's not really narrowing down the search, is it? New Russian jet unveiled. Arms Expo. Let me put that in. Let's see here. Okay, so I actually found NBC News covering it. I have to show you all this real quick. I'm just going to show you a snippet of it because this is what I'm referencing. It actually wasn't CNN. It was NBC.
So Russia.
So let me skip forward to the actual Arms Expo part. So here we go. So this is the Su-75, as opposed to the Su-57 that they're currently working on right now and they still haven't fixed.
Manufacturer Sukhoi had a big announcement. A design for a brand new stealth fighter jet.
Oh my god.
Here we are, been waiting for this all day. You know, aircraft take a very, very long time to develop, so we were kind of surprised to hear Russia at this year's Max Air Show was going to drop a completely new one that we had...
Drop a new one like it's the E3 video games conference. They're dropping a new one, guys. It's a new Call of Duty. But you see the piece of garbage back there in the back.
Here it is. Let's talk about this aircraft. Obviously, it's a very modern design.
And I like this. I like this. He doesn't sit there and say anything about the geometry or the fuselage. He just says, let's talk about the design. It's a very modern design. Well, yeah, but what about it? What about it, man?
And it's very sleek. It has all of the hallmarks of what you call a fifth generation.
And where are those hallmarks, per se? Like, what are those real identifying hallmarks rather than it looks modern and it's a hallmark? What are the actual hallmarks behind this thing? Because honestly, it looks like a balsa wood mock-up that's been painted really good to me.
Fighter aircraft, and that's really boils down to, in layman's terms, a stealth aircraft. It's
in layman's terms, he can't even explain anything. You know, this is what aggravates me about mainstream news. And I'm not dissing on this guy. Obviously, he has no idea about anything that he's talking about. But why in the hell do they always send folks to these arms expos that have no idea what a weapon really is? Like, they couldn't even tell you how a rifle works, much less how a fighter jet will work. And I hardly understand how fighter jets work. You know, there's probably a lot of people out there in the industry that know a lot more than me that could tell you all kinds of crap about them. But then you send someone out here that can't tell you anything, like, this is an upgraded version of the R-73, supposedly, or this is supposed to be a better R-27ER, or an R-27T. Like, you don't get any of that. You just, it basically, in layman's terms, is a stealth aircraft because it looks sleek.
Sleek, deflects radar, but what sets this apart from other fifth generation aircraft that we're seeing now is it has this very modern design feature in the back. And
what differentiates it isn't the computer, Matthew. Like, it's not a computer in the cockpit that helps the missiles to be guided better, or the radar that can pick up an aircraft anywhere. It's the new design feature at the back.
That sounds like a real informed comment.
Slamming down those keywords like we're trying to unlock a door right here. Good lord.
Actually, I'm struggling to think of an aircraft, of a fighter jet aircraft that's actually in service.
Oh, we could tell.
Has a similar design feature, and that is the lack of a rear elevator. We've all seen these on the back of the plane.
Actually, there's a decent amount of them that have gone into service that don't have a rear elevator, like you know, the B-2 Spirit comes to mind. You know, it doesn't have an elevator. It's not a fighter jet. The F-117 was a stealth bomber. It didn't have a separated elevator. But what do I know?
That kind of help it go up and down.
One of the interesting things about the Su-75 is that it seems largely designed with export in mind. In fact, it's being directly pitched to traditional buyers of Russian aircraft all over the world. And if it were not already clear from the name, Checkmate, it is being specifically pitched to countries that want something that can compete with the latest Western stealth aircraft.
I like how this... He doesn't really explain how it would really compete with a Western aircraft. It just looks modern, therefore it will compete. You know? It's kind of like the Su-57 argument. It looks modern, so it's on par, but then you look at it, and it's less than stealth. It doesn't actually deflect radar. There is a cross-section. They're still ironing out the kinks. They have to rivet parts of it together instead of weld it, because they don't really have the technology to weld together the entire Su-57. But anyways, I just want to show you a small snippet of this, because this is one thing that kind of drives me crazy that I was talking about a second ago, is that you just get a lot of keywords and stuff, and you never really get any details as to how this thing really is improved. Like, does it have a better radar? Does it have better maneuverability? Does it have vector thrust? Like, does it have a cross-section at all? Is it less than visible? Is it stealth? Well, low visibility is the proper term. None of that is explained. It's just, it looks cool, therefore it competes. And that's what kind of annoys me with that stuff. And that's why, with the T90M, it's like, this stuff doesn't really compete. You know, it's like, when you look at the actual computers inside of this thing, just remember, the 90s era looking computer parts in that T90M are being strapped onto a tank that comes from the 1970s. And when this thing rolled off the line, like the T-14 Armada, people in the West were going, oh my god, it looks modern, therefore it must be great. And then we've seen, like, I think 10 or 14 of these things get destroyed in Ukraine. Anyways, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on into our last bit of location unknown news. The Russian casualty report. It's been incredibly high today. Moving straight into it, 1,040 Russian soldiers have been killed over the past 24 hours. That is about a BTG and a half's worth of men. We also saw 11 armored personnel carriers.
Is that the highest day yet?
Not the highest day yet, but it's really close. I think it's only 80 short from the highest day. And these numbers are getting very normal at this point. Like yesterday, I think it was like 900 something. Today it's 1,040. Tomorrow it may be 700 or so, because it seems as though it's hovering around 700 or to 1,000. It's kind of in that range, and that seems to be the average. But still incredibly high, and one of the highest days we've seen yet. 11 armored personnel carriers destroyed. That's fairly average at this point. 17 supply trucks destroyed. We don't know how they got all of those, but 17 of them is a fairly high number, and ensuring that supplies are not getting to the front lines to some of these units and helping them to keep the fight going, although it is only 17 vehicles, and there are probably hundreds, if not several thousand supply trucks moving around in the background. 12 tanks are also destroyed, a fairly high number as well. We usually see somewhere around 7 to 8 tanks being destroyed per day. 12 is about a 50% increase. 11 artillery pieces were destroyed. In Ukrainian counter battery, while they've run out of ammunition in Bakhmut, from what we understand, Ukrainian counter battery is getting quite effective and able to knock out artillery pieces almost on a consistent basis. We also saw 13 drones were shot down today, along with an MLRS being destroyed. The Su-24 that was shot down over Bakhmut yesterday was counted in the casualty report today, and we also saw 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems were destroyed over the past 24 hours as well. Fairly high numbers. Actually, some of the highest numbers we've seen combined again, and this is kind of a statement that we're repeating a lot these days because each day is topping the last, but this is getting way on up there in terms of the infantry losses and also the vehicle losses all in one go. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from the casualty report and on out of our location unknown news and on into the northeast, where we got no news today except for this one clip of a TOS-1 being destroyed somewhere in the north. So we're going to let the video load. And here we go. Would you like a job with Trezelic? Make sure to get your job application in. We're going to mute the corporate music right there. And we're going to watch this thing roast. We don't know if the crew made it out. Maybe they didn't. They're driving around a mobile war crime, so hopefully they didn't. The thing is toasting down there, and you can see that it looks like a bright star in the night sky. Maybe even the sun. Enforcer is steamrolling tonight. Didn't get the chance. What did you not get the chance for, Matthew?
I saw some folks saying that, I think it was Melissa Smith left a GIF over there about the Bobcats in the comments section.
Oh, really?
Supposedly. I wasn't sure how far down it was, though.
we're going to have to go and see here in a second. But we can see this toss exploding, as y'all can see. It's a nice burning fire, nice roar. Man, I think that this toss could actually compare to Disney World's fireworks show that they have every night. Wow, that one just flew off. Look at that. It flew out of the toss and over there into the other tree line. With that, that's the end of the clip, and very nice to see that the thing roasted. We're now going to go back to the casualty report to see if there were any comments left about the Bobcat skid steers. So let me go back here, and let's click on the casualty report. Let's go through here. Another horrible day for Russia. You read the story? Maybe.
Hopefully it'll put Melissa toward the top because she is following us, so she should pop up close to the top.
I don't see it, although let me just go.
Oh, it's under show more replies right there.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. We'll go back then. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit new to this. So show more replies.
Go back up. There it is. Show more replies at the bottom of the third one.
So let's take a look. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it.
I'm not seeing it either.
Not seeing it. Very sad. Very sad. So with that,
well,
we're now going to be moving on from that. We're going to steamroll right on by again like a freight train, and we're now moving on into the Lysychansk area, and specifically Seversk. Now we're getting into parts of the front line that kind of move a little. So over the past 24 hours, we have seen, and let me wait for it to update so that way I can make sure I say it at the same time it happens. Okay, thank you. We've seen that really nothing has happened down here. And so moving on into our video clips near Avdiivka, we saw the artillery hitting Russian forces. Someone just told me people post corn on Twitter, and that's kind of interesting. I heard that you can buy corn at like $1 a bushel these days. Not a bad price, really. But anyways, we can hear we can see Michael Jordan about to make his trick shot in the NBA with this music playing in the background. So let me mute that. We can see the tank out there in the distance that the artillery is about to hit. And we can see it right there. And now YouTube's telling us that we're not maintaining a smooth stream. It's more like YouTube's not. Anyways, we can see it getting hit. The inferno begins. And we can see that the burnout was rather quick. We now see the next vehicle in the line also catching on fire, roasting and toasting a little bit. And now, Matthew, now that we're having lag issues, our viewership is soaring. It's all the way up to 6,300 now on my screen.
Lag is great for viewers.
Bring him in. Bring him in. Anyways, with that, that's the end of the clip, but we can see right there the Russian artillery did get some of the guys. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip and on into the next one near Verkhnum-Kamyanske, where we saw more free tanks have been given to Ukraine, but they're kind of the crappier kind. They're T-62Ms, but they did get them free, so I guess it counts for something. And so let's wait for this video to load. Apparently the internet problems are getting a little strong. We can see the T-62Ms. And a T-72 in there as well. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But very nice to see that they were able to get 2 T-62Ms and a T-72, all for the price of 1 Russian. And so with that, we're now moving on down into the area of Vesely, where we also saw that an MG nest was destroyed today by an air reconnaissance drone. I've heard this song a lot. We're going to have to mute it, though. We now see the drone flying over, looking down at the ground. Aiming its bomblet. Dropping the bomblet. The bomblet is falling. The bomblet lands. The bomblet falls into a hole. The bomblet explodes. The Russians start to panic. And we can see that the drone dropped the bomblet into an interestingly shaped trench, an L-shaped trench, because the Russians are eating a fat L right now, everywhere they are. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip in the area of Vesely and on down into the Bakhmut area. Over the past 24 hours in Bakhmut, we've been seeing developments that are, suffice it to say, somewhat uneventful. Over the past 24 hours, we saw one Russian movement move in the northern area, I guess you could say, of the Bakhmut front, further towards the town, and let me switch it to English. And let me go back down there to the town of Avdiivka, right there. And so it's not really that interesting of a move. It appears that they are moving, instead of through a over a ridge, they're moving through a valley. So that seems to be somewhat expected, really, considering what we've been seeing for months now around the area. And so let me move back down there and let us get into the video clips, because beyond that, nothing much really happened. So starting off in Krasnohora, we saw that the 3rd Brigade once again showed us the outskirts of the battlefield outside of Bakhmut. And so here's the clip. You see them riding on top of the BMP. You see a dog following them. We see the dog stop. So they're now moving through the outskirts. We now see them inside of a bunker and firing out of it with an AK carbine. You now see him firing the carbine again in a full burst. And you can see that AK doing the one that all of them do, which is smoke a little.
Oh, that mud is something else.
Yeah, that mud's rough right there. You now see the man's dirty AK. It's a very dirty AK. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But there's the 3rd Brigade showing us a little bit of what their life looks like in the area around Bakhmut. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news outside of the town of Bakhmut to the east, where we saw that a Russian BMP has been destroyed. And of course, we got the hype music again.
They love the trap music.
It sounds like the NFL draft is coming up around here. And we can see that the BMP was hit twice, as a matter of fact. Hit me once, shame on you. You hit me twice, shame on... Look, you fool me once, you can't fool me again. But as you can see right there, the BMP will not be usable anymore. With that, that's the end of that clip. And we're now going to be moving on into the next one, where we also saw in the center of Bakhmut a BMP-2, and let me make sure I got this correct, getting destroyed by the 93rd Brigade with a Stugna. And so, here's the clip. We see the BMP-2 right down there. You hear them say they're firing. They then fire. The Stugna is now on its way. See them lining up right to the rear of the BMP as it tries to move off the road. And... Bomba boom, baby.
Yes, меняйте ракету, меняйте.
Wow, that guy is loud.
He is loud.
Вот так вот, блядь.
My eardrums are bleeding. But still, they got that thing with the Stugna, and it's a rare Stugna kill. We haven't seen a lot of Stugna kills lately in the war anymore, but they're still out there, and they still are being used, just like with the 93rd. We're now moving on to the next bit of news, where we saw fighting in Bakhmut from an infantryman's perspective. Now, from what we understand, most of the snow has melted in Bakhmut at this point, so this may be older footage. But, without further ado, here's the video. See him lining up his RPG down the street, firing it. And we didn't see it explode, it just flew through the smoke, and that was it.
Нормально им закинул.
And with that, That's the end of the clip, but once again giving you a look at some of the fighting that's been going on in the city of Bakhmut. We're now moving on to our next clip inside of Bakhmut, where you also saw a time-lapse of all of the forces, both Russian and Ukrainian, and how they've been fighting and moving, according to this video. I don't really know where they got this information, and to be honest with you, I don't think the battlefield layout looks like this, because it's showing that the Russians were in Solidar. Like, the Russian armed forces were in Solidar, but we know for certain that the Wagner unit is up there as well. And so I don't know where they got that information. But still, it was an interesting little infographic that someone made, and I was like, hey, why not show it? So you see right here how the battle has evolved over literal months on end. This is about 5 months worth of fighting that you're about to watch unfold in 1 minute and 10 seconds. So you can see them doing their little moves, you know, there they go. It's like a little race. And you see the fight for the chicken tender right there, which takes a while. Then they eventually get pushed off of the chicken tender for the most part and into the city. And then we see them slowly moving their way towards the Bakhmutka River in the middle of Bakhmut. See the Russians beginning to Krasnodar in the north, the swing to the south trying to move towards Chasiv Yar. And you see most of the Ukrainian units holding the center.
I like how the Russian units are just sitting back watching the Wagner get slaughtered. Like, oh, look.
They're like, hey, look, idiots. We're smarter than them, right? As they toss a grenade in between each other with a pin pull playing hot potato. And the video ends right there, and that's what the front lines kind of look like today, although it isn't up to date. And of course, the positions aren't exactly accurate. But still, very interesting little time lapse, kind of showing how the battle sort of unfolded, although some of the unit markers are a little inaccurate from the information we've received. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news in the center of Bakhmut, where we saw in the rear line that they've made a bridge crossing over one of the bridges that the Russians have destroyed. And so, here's the clip. When you see that they've covered it with a pretty good layer of dirt on this end, they may be attempting to try and create a crossing here, but this bridge has been largely destroyed. With that, that's the end of that clip, but once again giving a little bit of a look as to the destruction of the bridge behind the lines, which will make the Ukrainian situation a little bit more difficult as supplies can no longer cross down that road. We're now moving on to our last clip from Bakhmut, where we also saw a BTR-4 in action. And we gotta mute that because, you know, I don't know what kind of music that is and it's copyrighted for sure. When you see them firing into the tree line, we can't really see what they're firing at due to the flash of the gun on the camera. You can just see him looking out the windshield like, oh wow, they're getting it good.
He's like, oh, so bright.
He's like, man, this stuff is bright, man. And we can see them guiding the gun around a little bit again. When you see them looking around, it appears that the driver is getting ready to go, but it looks like they haven't started on the move yet. Well, they're now on the move. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but giving you a little bit of a look at one of the BTR-4s that are operating in the Bakhmut area. We're now going to be moving out of Bakhmut and down into Donetsk, where we also saw some Ukrainian defenders in that area as well.
Їдемо. На війну.
Да?
Куди? На війну їдемо, куди що їхати?
Мам, я тобі дзвонив, син виїхав.
Захищати родину їдемо.
Да.
Нашу рідну.
Можеш сказати, чому на позиції вночі заїжджають?
Man, that guy's got an NVG. Man, that guy's the Borg. He's about to go, I'm the cutest of Borg.
І тільки раз побачать, в нашу сторону зразу полетить все, що допоможе. Що буває, Трошки погано чого їхати. Нові ямки бувають.
В прильоті?
Так. Я, в принципі, цієї ночі проїхав нормально, а на слідучу ніч їдеш, а там ямка така, що можна заїхати і поддон розбити.
Man, it was so fucking. Somebody turned on like a light right then while I had that on.
I can't see! I can't see!
Здалека красиво.
Що це таке?
Фосфор.
Also, we're gonna mute this now because I hear the music, and I don't know how long I've zoned out there watching this video and it let the music play. And also, we're gonna have to cut this down a little bit because the video is incredibly long. But we can see them on the move here. We're gonna skip forward a little bit. See them now smoking the cigarette. Now see an interview with one of them. We're going to skip forward. We can see them cooking. We can see the reporter. We can see the soldiers on the front. And lastly, we can see them walking through the trenches. If y'all want to watch the full clip, go to the link in the description below to find the map, and you can find it down there. But that's the clip we saw so far, and once again, a fairly interesting insight on what soldiers' lives look like on the front lines. We're now going to be moving down to Donetsk, where we also saw a Ukrainian artillery piece destroy an SPG, a 2S1 as a matter of fact. And so with that, here's the clip. We're going to mute that, but you can see the 2S1 right there with a little camouflage net over it. That did not save it, however. It got hit directly by the artillery. And now the video's loading. Got hit directly by the artillery, and now the thing's turned into a nice bonfire. I can already see the high schoolers and frat kids pulling up to this bonfire and whipping out the beers to get absolutely hammered. With that, that's the end of the clip, but very nice to see that another SPG has bitten the dust. We're now going to be moving on behind the lines in the area of Pisky, where we saw that a Chinese drone had been shot down. This thing was called a Mig-29. Sadly, it doesn't look like its life of Muggin will continue on, as it was shot down by Ukrainian forces. It is estimated that the cost of this drone is around $15,000, and is one of the first instances of a full-fledged Chinese military drone being seen anywhere in Ukraine and also being shot down. We're now going to be moving on from that little bit of information and on down towards the Marinka area, where we saw a flying RPG drone slam right into the Russians. And so, here's the clip. You see them setting up the RPG to the drone. The drone, although very improvised, still looks better than a tramp. You see them doing the final adjustments, putting the duct tape on, which is always the hallmark of a great aircraft. If Russians had duct tape, the war would be over. But sadly, they have none.
Oh, yes.
they suffer without the duct tape. We now see him taking the cap off of the RPG.
Oh, but apparently we have some lag.
Oh, we got lag. Hang on, everyone. We're going to sit this out for a second. Yep, we got lag. Ooh, we got bad lag. But our viewership is skyrocketing once again. It's all the way up to 5.8 thousand.
I feel like YouTube's screwing with our stream like the last 4 or 5 days. Like it's been doing this consistently.
I feel like they are because it's nothing on our end. It's something on their end. Well, then again, I just looked at OBS having a problem, but our Wi-Fi is connected perfectly fine, and nothing's slowing down on our end. That's the thing. We can both hear each other on the call fine. You now see them preparing to launch the drone. Now see that's almost ready to fly. And he threw it and it almost nosedived. And now it's on its way.
Damn. I got freaked out.
Dude, that was scary though, man. It really was. Now see the drone on its way, with the RPG head clearly seen at the top of the screen. Mighty Root said, it's Matt's breathing. It is. That's what's causing the problems.
That is.
It's orbiting.
Flight mode, look for orcs.
Flight mode, turn them into worms. Go. And then here they go. They're going on their way down. And they went through the trees. We didn't get to see what they hit. But it looks like it did explode nonetheless. That's the end of the clip, but very interesting to see. We're now going to be moving on out of Marinka and down into Vulhedar, where we also saw a Russian criminal has been slaughtered in the area. This guy here, this guy called Russian Solodovnik, wait, hang on. His name was Solodovnikov. He said that he would cut off the ear of a Azov soldier, and it appears that, according to a Russian Telegram post today, he has unfortunately been slaughtered himself in the Vulhedar area. For some reason, the video will not load, probably due to some reason, one or the other, but there's the picture of the guy, and he got greased. We're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on into our next one in the Vulhedar area, where we also saw a Russian column get destroyed here as well. And when you hear the Pingu music playing, which is Mozart's Lacrimosa. The marker there is slightly inaccurate from what we can tell. There are no Russians in the area, but we can see the column right here, and the column did get destroyed. Now that is accurate. You see the shells landing on top of them, and they're just getting swiped. They're just getting swiped off the face of the earth, wiped out, as a matter of fact. Toasting or roasting. And everyone is not getting out of this okay. The Russians are going, oh, bleed. The Russians crawling out of the burning tank said, please subscribe for regular content. And then died. But that's the end of the clip. Very interesting to see. With that, we're now moving on into our next one, further down the line and in the area of Avdiivka, where we also saw the Ukrainians checking out a Russian position. Here's the clip.
Зашли, блядь, на пидорские позиции. Ребятки мародерят, нахуй. Шмель перемотанный, блядь. А? Чуть шмель перемотанный. А то новенький. Моша, передай привет, Иван.
So looking around the weapons that the Russians left behind, finding themselves some RPGs and the like.
Андрюша, помаши привет, Иван.
And we see them getting a good laugh out of that guy and his joke. And of course, the morale is high. And they also took a position too, so I bet that's a good reason why the morale is high. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into Mariupol, where we also saw a storage fire occur in the city. We don't know what's burning, but it's thick black smoke, which shows it may be fuel or it may be something else. It's certainly not ammunition, because ammunition burns a white smoke. With that, that's the end of that clip as well. A very short one, and we don't really have a lot of information to work off of on that one either. And so with that, we've now covered all of the news from top to bottom, start to finish, from Russia to Poland, and all the way to the insides of Ukraine. It's time for us to move on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 386 of the war in Ukraine. And without further ado, here is the speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, рік тому російські військові вчинили один з найстрашніших злочинів цієї війни. Російські бомби зруйнували театр в Маріуполі, будівлю, яка використовувалась як укриття. Там були жінки з дітьми, вагітні, літні люди. Цивільний об'єкт, свідомо зруйнований окупантом. Ми досі не знаємо точної кількості загиблих. Сотні людей, тисяча. Написи «Діти» поряд з водою. Трибунал, який покарає цього агресора так само, як були покарані агресори минулого. Настане день, і усі винуватці воєнних злочинів проти українців опиняться у залах Міжнародного кримінального суду та національних судів. Всю юридичну роботу ми зробимо. Усіх партнерів, які для цього необхідні, мобілізуємо. Це вже робиться. Щодня ми наближаємо повернення справедливості для України. Щодня працюємо заради цього. Генеральний прокурор та його офіс, українські правоохоронці, спецслужби, уряд, дипломати, мій офіс. У рашизму не вийде залишитись непокараним злом. Покарання буде. А якщо хтось із терористів сподівається десь там сховатись, не вийде. Усі, хто бомбив Україну, хто спалював наші села, хто бив по українських містах, по Миколаєву, Херсону, по Нікополю і Марганцю, по Запоріжжю, по містах Донбасу, по Харкову, Харківщині. Усі, хто веде терористичний вогонь по громадах Чернігівської та Сумської областей, усі, хто приніс війну в Донецьк і Луганськ, усі, хто намагався поневолити Крим, усі рашисти відповідатимуть. Відповідатимуть за кожне забране українське життя. Вічна пам'ять усім нашим людям, усім дорослим і дітям, чиї життя забрав російський терор. Сьогодні я говорив з прем'єр-міністром Британії. Загалом про те, як посилити наші оборонні можливості, як завжди дуже конкретна розмова. І я дякую Ріші, дякую усім британцям за незмінну і уважну підтримку. Результати розмови будуть у наших воїнів. Сьогодні ж зустрівся у Києві з прем'єр-міністром Латвії, подякував за новий оборонний пакет для нашої держави, за принципову підтримку на всіх рівнях, від зброї до політики, від санкцій проти Росії до юридичних питань. Незмінно працюємо на двох напрямках нашої зовнішньої політики – європейській та євроатлантичній. З усіма партнерами, з офіційними та громадськими діячами, з політиками та усіма іншими спільнотами, хто має вплив. Я дякую Латвії за підтримку України на обох цих шляхах. Євросоюз і НАТО. Сьогодні ми говорили з паном прем'єр-міністром Каріншем про відповідні перспективи цього року. Україна завжди була Європою, Україна завжди буде Європою. Російські бомби не змінять об'єктивну реальність. Реальність, яку захищають українці. Я дякую всім, хто б'ється зараз під Мар'янкою, під Бахмутом, під Авдіївкою, на Луганщині, на ділянках фронту на півдні. І дякую усім, хто привчає Росію до того, що відповідальність за зло неминуча. Десантники 79-ки, дякую вам і сьогодні. 35-та і 36-та окремі бригади морської піхоти, дякую вам, хлопці. Бійці 55-ї окремої артилерійської бригади, молодці. 74-й окремий розвідувальний батальйон, дякую вам. Дякую воїнам Нацгвардії, які б'ються на Сході разом з усіма нашими силами оборони. Батальйонні групи Центрального та Західного оперативного територіального об'єднання Національної гвардії, дякую вам, хлопці. Запорізький напрямок. 128-ма окрема гірсько-штурмова бригада та 44-та окрема артилерійська бригада, як і завжди молодці. Харківщина, 3-я окрема танкова залізна бригада. 1-ша окрема бригада спецпризначення імені Богуна, 127-ма окрема бригада тероборони. Дякую вам, воїни. Слава кожному і кожній, хто зараз в бою за Україну. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто наближає відповідальність для держави зла. Вся Україна буде вільною. Слава Україні!
And so with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 386 of the news of the war in Ukraine. And of course, I thank you all so much once again for watching. We're about to be moving into the second segment of the stream, which is the question segment. We're going to address all of the super chats that have been sent in. We're going to address all of the live chats, as many as we can, that have been sent in, and we're going to be addressing all of our polls. But before we do, I have to thank you all so much once again for watching the news segment. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to hit the like, comment, and subscribe button, because this stream runs 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single day. The only day we do not run is Monday. And so, of course, I thank you all so much once again for watching. And with that, I'm now going to let Matthew take us into that question segment. So, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and we have 4 polls to address for our final question segment. Before I get into the first one, I want to call out Emily, Caitlin, and also Benjamin. They sent me a video. Yes, call them out. Call them out. They sent me a video because they recently played the violin for the Ukrainians in Birmingham recently. I thought it was really cool, and also just want to give them a shout out and thank them for supporting Ukraine and also helping to bring awareness to it. And that's really cool. They're from Alabama too. Can't give any more details than that. But very cool to see fellow Alabamians supporting Ukraine. And we do greatly appreciate it. And of course, Slava Ukraine.
Slava Ukraine. And thank y'all so much for that. That was really cool. And also, I've got to say that was a pretty neat tribute that y'all did to Ukraine. And of course, I think a lot of Ukrainians would appreciate that when they see it, if they do. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And now let's get on into those polls, Matthew.
And the first poll says that Ukraine warns that Russia...
Oh, wait a minute, Matthew. I forgot. We forgot to plug it, you Marifatty.
Oh,
we forgot to plug it all night long. Yeah. We have a merch run going on right now. How dare you? Let me go to enforcerstore.com. So if you go to enforcerstore.com, we are still running the Amerifatty limited edition merch run. You can get the mug, you can get the t-shirt, you can get the hoodie, you can get the sticker, the baseball cap, or this one, which isn't even Amerifatty, that's just a new one. Or this poster. You can get one. We gotta plug the merch. Supports this channel, helps us to keep this thing running. And without y'all, it wouldn't be possible. So make sure to get yourself something cool. Make sure to get yourself a shirt, you know what I mean? So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
All right, and back to that first poll we have. It says, Ukraine warns that Russia is rapidly increasing its presence in the Black Sea after the drone incident. And what are your thoughts? 46% said that's a result of a bad U.S. response. 6% said unsure, 37% said it's probably for drone recovery, and 11% said it's because Russia wants to attack Ukraine. And I have a feeling that it's probably mainly because of the drone recovery, but at the same time, though, they brought in a bunch of missile-carrying ships, which Ukraine says could attack their country, and that could be a direct result of the U.S. response to the drone, because we really haven't reacted very strongly, and in fact, we backed down. So on this one, I'm a little bit torn. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say the Russians saying that they're increasing their presence in the Black Sea is somewhat of an aggressive move, considering they illegally hold Crimea. They shouldn't really be able to expand into the Black Sea beyond the area of the Azov Sea, which they partially control with Ukraine when they actually had any control, and also the coast right off of Sochi and Novorossiysk. Those are really the only areas that they have access to, and so saying that they're going to start projecting into the center and far west of the Black Sea, I would say is a violation of international airspace, international waters, and international law. It's kind of like what the Chinese are trying to do in the South China Sea by building the fake islands and then saying that's a part of their country and therefore it's a part of their national waters and national airspace. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well in my opinion, and with that, you know what we're about to do, Matthew. We're on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our second poll, it says, well, I flip over to it, customs documents have been supplying Russia with military aid, and what are your thoughts? 88% said that is unsurprising, it's been happening. 2% said unsure. 7% said, really? And why no response? And 3% said that's surprising and has the West known. And I got to say, to me, that is unsurprising. I've been saying this entire time that China has had to have been supporting Russia behind the scenes because that has to be their natural ally, because otherwise, where else do they turn rather than Russia? So I'm not very shocked by that, and it looks like the state-owned companies that sent the weapons sent them through the UAE and also Turkey to try to cover their tracks because they didn't want it going back to them or being traced back to them. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say that is a little shocking to me. Is this an official state-sponsored support by the Chinese government, or is this just Chinese companies? Oh, we're running through some lag. Lag alert! Lag alert! Oh, wait, YouTube's lying to me. Sorry. Oops. I made all those noises. Everyone could hear it. Anyways, let's see. Are they state-sponsored support, or is it just private companies selling to the Russians because they're buying?
Well, the companies are owned by the Chinese state. So, I mean, technically it's not sanctioned by the Chinese government, but at the same time, it's a state-owned company. So nothing happens that they don't, give the go-ahead to.
But aren't almost all companies in China state-owned or state-controlled, and then they just give out like the CEO title and position to people who are favored by the party?
That's true too. So, I mean, it was probably sanctioned from the top.
Maybe. But at the same time, not everything in China is always sanctioned at the top. So maybe it's something where they're just like, oh, we can make a bit of cash. Because at the same time, I guess you could say that the Chinese have been supplying Ukraine with drones because a lot of them are DJI drones, and those are, of course, made in China. And the company DJI is from China. So I guess you could say, that there's Chinese equipment being used by the Ukrainians as well in that regard. And also, did the description go into a lot of detail about what was really being provided, or did it just say ammunition and stuff like that?
Let me check the Twitter. Let's see here. It was supposedly a shipment of at least 1,000 rifles, body armor, ammunition, and also that's all it says. But also it says various other equipment.
1,000 rifles? That's like nothing.
1,000 rifles.
That's like that's enough to
like a gift.
Yeah, that's enough to equip like one battalion tactical group, and that's it. Like you're out after
Although
that.
Surely that's not all of it. That's just what we know about, I'm sure, because that happened late 2022, and it's now March of 2023.
Well, I mean, like, with that kind of support, though, I mean, like, how much longer would the Russians last? Like 3 hours? Like, it's not really war-changing support. I'll say that, at least from what we know. It's not war-changing support. It seems incredibly small and minuscule. Probably something that a company just said in China, oh, look, we could sell to them, and they'll just buy this stuff, and they send them, like, a small order. Because, hell, honestly, 1,000 guns isn't that big of a number, really. And people are going to clip that in the future, Matthew, when I'm running for president, and say 1,000 guns is not a big number, or something like that in a slander campaign. But anyways,
but my only question is, why would they need to send it through the UAE and Turkey if they, just figured they were going to send them 1,000 like as a small gift? And also, how come Western intelligence hasn't known this before now? Because they've been making a big deal about China might start sending weapons to Russia, and it looks like they already have. And they seem like they're maybe ignorant to that.
Maybe they are ignorant. I have to say the U.S. intelligence isn't really as good as people think it is. And there's people, there's people out there who say, oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, it isn't. Well, I'll just say this. How come we said there was yellow cake uranium that was, enriched yellow cake uranium in Iraq, and we invaded their country because of that? And then we got there and we found out there wasn't any there. And the guy who was sent to investigate that, he actually sat in a hotel in Baghdad for 13 days, we found out in the congressional hearing, and then just called back to the U.S. and said, yeah, there's uranium here, I found it. And that's why we went to war with them and invaded them in 2003. It's like...
Yeah, nobody told me about the yellow cake, or I'd have been there.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, yellow cake sounds delicious, I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't know what flavor that is, but yellow cake sounds great. I'd eat myself some. But...
Like Xi said, uranium.
What's up, Beijing? As he's got the yellow cake on his table. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a poll. I don't know why I'm acting like I'm saying a question, but the third poll says China and Ukraine's diplomats have a rare phone call today, and China blames the U.S. for quote-unquote fanning the flames. And what are your thoughts? 41% said Ukraine should cease contact with China. 8% said unsure. 35% said it sounds like China is biased. Who knew? 16% said Ukraine should keep trying with China. And after all China has done, I think Ukraine should immediately cease contact with them. I'm not sure why they're pursuing relations with China. It doesn't really make any sense. And China has done a boatload of things to make Ukraine not only not just cease contact with them, but also to be enemies with them as well, because they're not aligned with Ukraine at all. But Enforcer, what say you?
It's hilarious, man, because the Ukrainian government is sitting there using M777s, Javelins, MRAPs, Max Pros, HIMARS, let's think of everything else. M16s, M4s. Let's see, am I missing anything else? 81mm mortars, M113s, Bradleys. They're going to be getting Abrams and the Bradleys in the future. They've got Humvees, they've got 50 cals, they've got the tow launchers, they've got a few helicopters, although they're not like American ones, they're Russian ones, but we just sent them to them. They have just about anything and everything in any category you could imagine that has been sent from the United States. And then the Chinese call up and go, you know, Eeyore, who's been messing around in the world the wrong way? And Zelenskyy goes, who? America. And he's like, what? He's like, wait a minute, hang on. Because if the Chinese are asking for peace, but they say America's been fueling the flames, obviously that makes it clear what kind of peace they've been talking about. A peace where the Russians get what they want and the Ukrainians get screwed. That's the kind of peace that they're going for. So I would say, now that that's become clear by that statement, the Ukrainians should cut all ties with them, because there's nothing they're going to get out of that relationship, except for souring our relationship with them. Because I will say this, it would be absolutely asinine, after all the support we've given as the Western world and as the United States, for the Ukrainians to go, you know, the Chinese kind of got a point. The U.S. has been fueling the flames, because we've been fueling the fire of their survival for an entire year and a month. So if they start going, well, maybe the Chinese can be friends, now that they've said that, I would not look at that well. But with that, I hope that does address...
And this is China's new strategy. They go around trying to use this manipulative diplomacy to try to...
You were on your monologue and it went... I was like, oh, man! I was like, dude! So restart that if you can remember what you were saying, Matthew, because I think that it cut it off like right at the start.
I was somebody heard it, manipulative diplomacy. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's China's new strategy, and hopefully Ukraine doesn't fall for it, because if they fall for it, it's going to end up in a really bad situation for Ukraine, because China's been doing that to everyone, but this time it's slightly different because they're using diplomacy to sort of like snake their way in there to get a foothold. But, you know, hopefully people wise up.
Hopefully people do, and I would say... I would have to say this. I'm going to have to be entirely honest on this situation. If the Ukrainian government, for some reason, started to go in the direction of trying to become friendly with the Chinese, especially seeing that the Chinese have made it clear to them they view the United States as a rival. The United States is not a good force, a force of good in the world, not in their interests. So the Ukrainians are going to be making friends with the Chinese, although knowing that friendship is inherently opposite of the friendship they have with the West and the United States. Honestly, that would look like the Ukrainians may be gearing up to just go right back in the opposite direction after we help them out in the war. You know, because if you got to think about this, the Chinese are going to pull the Russians into their sphere of influence after this war. The Russians are going to be too weak to stand up against it. The Russians will become a smaller force within their sphere of influence that they're going to then be building through Central Asia and around the Indian Ocean. So then, the Ukrainians become friends with the Chinese give them... Oh, we're back. Let me see if YouTube sent me an email on anything. And... they have not sent me an email. So, getting back to this, don't like the idea of that, and Ukraine should cut all ties with China considering what they've said, just to make it simple. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the last poll says, reports say that the former Russian President Medvedev has put out a $15 million hit on Italy's defense minister. And what are your thoughts? And yes, that is apparently a real deal. I thought it was fake when I first saw it, but it appears it is legit. But still got to do some double checking on it on the back end, because I can't read the report every single word for word in the precise meaning, because it comes from an Italian newspaper. And it's been reported in Italy, but not really catching a lot of international attention. It looks like 69%, nice, said that sounds about right for Russia. 5% said unsure. 13% said I don't believe it, I need more info. And 14% said, isn't that illegal or something? And yes, it is illegal. It is definitely illegal.
Oh, yes.
Medvedev apparently had $15 million laying around. He could send a contract out to the Wagner Group and say, go kill this guy over here in Italy, which doesn't seem like a very wise idea. And luckily, Italian intelligence intercepted it before anything bad happened. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I say me, that is no good at all, and I would say that that is a violation of international law to be putting hits out on people. I mean, what is the president of the United States going to do, Matthew, in response to that? You don't disrespect the family. You know, I'm the Godfather.
It's like a mob or something.
I want to put a hit out on Putin. I want to make him suffer. Look how he massacred my boy. Wait, hang on. Let me get it right. Look how he massacred my boy, or something like that. But anyways, that's what it's not a good precedent. That sounds absolutely stupid, but I wouldn't doubt that the Russians would do it. So with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well. And that made me think of our Italian viewer, Matthew, that we have in Sorrento. You know, little Sorrento.
Yes. Yes.
Let me click on the name of this town. Let's just see what the pictures look like, that they like the choice pictures of Sorrento. Oh, dude.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Oh, wow, dude. This thing is nice, man. Look at this.
Can I have some of that?
Man, I mean, like, if you sleepwalk at night and you walk out of your house and go sleepwalking, watch out, man, because it's a fall. It's a little bit of a fall to the beach. But wow, that's really nice.
I want to see Italy. It looks like a cool place.
It looks like a really cool place. I hear that Italians are a lot nicer than, like, the French, like, to tourists. Because I hear that the French, like, you know, I know we have French viewers, and let me know if I'm correct in saying this. French people are pretty hostile about people who try to speak French or people who don't try to speak French at all. So you're pretty much like screwed if you do, screwed if you don't kind of thing. I haven't heard that much about the Italians though. And I actually had a friend that went to France he was like, yeah, that's true. Like, if you try and speak French to them, they're insulted that you're butchering French. But if you speak English, then they're insulted that you don't try and speak French. So I'm like, huh, that's like weird. That's kind of just like messing with you, I guess. I don't know. But still, it's beautiful down here in Sorrento. I'm very interested to think that it's such a beautiful town like this that the Russians will threaten to kill a minister of defense in. But with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
I wonder if they're going to add that mission to Hitman 2.
What mission?
Yeah, the mission, the hit, the $50 million hit.
Oh, yeah. It's a $50 million hit. We got to get it done. Where the hell would they put it? Like the Roman Colosseum or something?
Maybe.
You walk into the Roman Colosseum. Remember, no Italian. It's like that Call of Duty mission, but it's with Italians instead. Oh, man. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll of the night. So we are now moving on to our super chat questions. And up first, we have a 20 from none other than BC Skyman, who says, question from the chat, please. An awesome job, enforcers, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Of course, without y'all support, it wouldn't be possible. And we will pick a question from the live chat in your honor. And also, Slava Ukraine. Thank you for being so generous in helping us to answer a live chat question. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Frequency Harmonic, who says, why is Ukraine not launching an attack on the Russian fleet?
The Ukrainians are not launching an attack on the Russian fleet because it seems that they may have exhausted their options to be able to conduct one well. They did do the kamikaze boats a little while ago and trying to sail them into Sevastopol Bay. It seems as though it was mildly effective, but a lot of them got destroyed, so it appears that the Russians may be prepared for that one now since it happened to them before. We also know that the drone attacks apparently have been exhausted in their effectiveness because they used to conduct them when they were successful, but now they're not conducting them anymore, which shows that apparently the interception rates were getting so high that they weren't even worthwhile. So right now, and I know that drone, the cruise missile like Tu-141s are in the picture, but at the same time, those are not usually accurate enough to hit the width of a ship. Like, their accuracy is somewhere like, I believe, like 150 feet in most directions, or down to about 100 feet, and that means that you have a 50% chance of hitting a ship if it was to be directed at coordinates that came along its bow or its stern. It could go, it has a 25% chance of going off to the left side, the right side, or a 50% chance of actually hitting the ship. So it's a little bit too much of a risk to be able to waste a missile like that. So that may be why we're not seeing attacks like that occurring on the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol anymore, is because they don't really have an effective way to conduct one at the moment. But I'm sure they're currently churning away those very intelligent, very ingenuitive Ukrainian minds somewhere in the country to find a way to be able to strike these things where they're at their moorings. I butchered that last statement very badly. Where they are at their moorings. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for supporting and sponsoring that live chat as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And real quick, I saw I Am Gift Bearer say, can they hit ships with HIMARS?
You can hit a ship with a HIMARS. It's just that the ship would have to be stationary and in range. And neither of those things are happening right now. They're not in range, but they are stationary. You have to have both of those, stationary and in range. Otherwise, you're just kind of shooting missiles and praying that they kind of hit. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, I've seen several people saying this tonight, and this could be the case. Chris something one said, speak softly but have big stick. Or excuse me, carry a big stick.
Have big stick.
But,
all right.
Carry a big stick. But who said that? What president made that statement? Maybe somebody did.
Teddy Roosevelt, my favorite.
That may be what the U.S. is trying to go for. We gotta see some backup though, because when you make sort of weak statements like we've done, people start losing faith in your power and strength real quick if you don't back it up with some kind of actual force.
See, back in the day, Matthew, the president at the time, Teddy Roosevelt, great man, you know, in my opinion, favorite president ever. He was a big fan of the whole idea of America getting out there on the world stage. He really is the president who brought us onto the world stage where we have to deal with problems like we are today. And what he did during his presidency, although it was largely in peacetime, there was really nothing we were getting involved in that was major during his presidency, is that he took a decent amount of the U.S. Navy and sent them off on an expedition around the world. And this came to be known as the Great White Fleet. We went everywhere, and this Navy was such a sight that everywhere it went, the cities that this fleet would moor in or dock at would call like an entire week holiday. Like in Australia, I believe their port of call was Melbourne, I believe, or it was Sydney. It was Sydney or Melbourne. I think they may have actually stopped and called it both of them. They had a fleet week where schools and everything was canceled for an entire week, so that way everyone could climb on board the ships, take a look around, and meet the U.S. Navy. So it was a very interesting thing that they did with the Great White Fleet, because it made America seem to most of the world that we were actually there now, because until then the U.S. Navy didn't really travel internationally. We didn't go to foreign countries. We didn't ever visit anyone with our Navy. We were just kind of in the United States. We were in North America, and if you were in North America you saw us, but anywhere else you didn't. Then after that, everyone was like, oh wow, like we just saw the U.S. Navy, like that was pretty cool. And then by the time they got back to the United States, because the voyage took so long, all the ships in the U.S. fleet were obsolete because the dreadnought had just been introduced in the service in Britain. So everything that we were using just looked like bull compared to the dreadnought. But still, beyond that, it's a very interesting show of force. It made America look fairly strong. It made a lot of people think, hey, they got a lot of money, and also it looks like they might have a little bit of muscle. These people might be able to do something. And then they learned in World War I that we didn't really do anything well then exactly, but we had a lot of muscle if they just gave us the weapons. So with that, I hope that addresses
well,
that.
You know, when I look at this picture right here you're showing on your screen, it makes me think, how dare you?
Man,
look at that pollution.
Dude, these guys right here, when you ask them about global warming, they go, who cares? And it will definitely get warmer, I promise you. Like that's
roll that cold, baby.
Let me see if I can find you another picture. I think this one's actually a color translated picture. It was so weird looking because the top is like this weird like custard yellow, and then the bottom is just stark white. And this was even crazier at the time because you loaded these ships with coal, and so coal, you know, of course, is black, and it leaves coal dust on everything, which is also black. So the amount of maintenance and cleaning that had to go into these ships to keep them the stark white look was incredibly difficult, incredibly strenuous. And it also added to our prestige because we would show up with these perfectly white, clean-looking ships, while really no one else in the world did much of that.
Huh.
But still,
well, that's nice we were able to keep them clean like that. Can we even keep them clean today?
Well, I mean,
I mean, we lose ships today.
let me get the Arleigh Burkes up. We keep them pretty clean. You know, like this one looks pretty clean. These things are like 40 years old.
Yeah, it doesn't look 40 years old. It looks pretty modern.
Yeah, they look brand new. And I mean, it's like, damn, I don't know who's cleaning these ships. Well, this one, you can kind of see like some discolorations in some of the panels, but still not that bad looking. I mean, they look great. The Navy has some pretty decent standards. For the captains, however, and for the helmsmen, maybe not so much, you know, considering they were running into cargo ships like 2 years ago in the Sea of Japan, but sometimes people make mistakes. Can't really judge them for that. Anyways, that we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Jesus UCSB once again. He puts in a $20 donation, and Jesus says, I just had some enchiladas and a Corona. But I wanted to thank you both of the enforcers. I'm so proud that we have Latinos, Americans, Canadians, Aussies, etc. And it's heartwarming seeing LSA global unity, just like NAFO. And thank you.
And
thank you, Jesus.
And I gotta thank you so much, Jesus, for appreciating the Lee Spring Army, because it really is a community that's formed around this channel. It's the best out there. And I don't just say that to flatter folks. It really is the best out there. I've never seen a community that has come to the level of greatness as the Lee Spring Army. It's incredible. Got to give a huge credit to Matthew for helping to moderate sometimes what is said and not said in the community, because that's helped to shape it up fairly well. Of course, the rules set out by me, like no politics and things like that, but then Matthew's the one who actually goes down there and makes sure that that's upheld, and it's made an incredible community. It's absolutely great from start to finish. I think it's the best one out there, of course, like I said before, and I will never step off of that pedestal. I've never seen a community out there on YouTube that is as good as this one, and I don't think there ever will be one as great as this one. And so I got to thank you so much once again for the support, Jesus, and I hope that addresses it fairly well. And thank you so much once again for support. And also, I wish I had an enchilada right now. I was starving during Zelensky's speech. I went and got myself these new Nutella bar things, if you know what I'm talking about, Matthew. I think y'all got them at a store.
Be readies.
Yeah, like I got one of those. It's actually not that bad. And I got some goldfish, and I have saltine crackers here on the desk, but I didn't have time to eat those, so I only ate like a small pack of goldfish and then that little Nutella thing. But it was okay. I mean, it was pretty good. But I wish I had an enchilada, though, because enchiladas are delicious. I love enchiladas. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much for supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running.
Yes, indeed. And also, thank you, Mick, for the kind words in the chat, too. I was about to type it, but I just started talking, so I had to stop. But thank you very much. And also, up next, we have a $17 super chat from Mountain Girl RC, who says, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, at the start of a new week, when calling out the casualty report, can you please give a total number of losses, for us who listen or blind?
Yes, I could. And there we go. Thank you for the support. And also, there's one of the one of the maybe blind viewers. I don't know if you are blind. I don't know if you're asking because you are. Because one thing that was funny that I've kept in the back of my mind since is that there's a lot of people who watch this channel. There's 3,800. There's nearly 4,000 of y'all actually on right now. It's just about 100 shy. There are thousands of people who get on every single night, and there's people of all kinds of varieties. There's people from the Ukrainian army, there's people from the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, the Pentagon, there's people in the army, the Navy, there's folks that work at SpaceX, there's people who are CEOs of large companies. There are just average people like me watching the channel. There's literally anyone and everyone out there. There's blind and deaf people who watch. Well, actually, blind people who listen and then deaf people who watch, but moving on from that, one time when I was talking about this before, I actually saw a hater on another channel, and I'm glad you brought this up. They sat there and said, someone said, well, he reads off everything because there are blind people who watch his show. And they can't really see what's going on, so he explains everything incredibly well, so that way they know what's going on. And then they said, well, yeah, but he also says soldiers of Ukraine watch his channel too, so I think he's lying about it all. And I was like, that's like the stupidest thing I ever heard. Like, everyone's just going to be the same. Like, all 4,000 of y'all watching right now are either blind or you're either a soldier of Ukraine. You can't be all different people. Like, that was like the dumbest comment I've ever seen a hater say, and it's always stuck with me. I was like, that doesn't even make any sense, because it's like I have scoliosis, Matthew doesn't. So is it a lie that I have scoliosis because Matthew doesn't, or is Matthew lying because I have scoliosis and he really does? Like it was like that was the dumbest thing. But I do thank you for the support.
There's some LSAT style logic going on right here.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, this is some of that crap when you eat snacks and you squat a little bit too much. You get this kind of crap in your head and you go around spewing it out. But yeah, that's something I've seen before, and it just absolutely blew me away. I was like, what the hell are they talking about? You know. But anyways, moving on from that, I do thank you for the support, and I will make sure to do that, because we always try and make sure, because we do have blind and deaf people watching, and I always want to make sure that we try and make that as best as possible for them. Sadly, we can't really do a lot for the deaf people, because they always ask for subtitles on our streams, and that would take so much to do accurately, because it's 3.5 hours of a show, and of course I'm talking almost nonstop for 3.5 hours, so I would have to go through and type in everything to make sure that the subtitles are correct. So I think they upload as subtitles after the video goes live. I think that is one way that it does work. I don't know, Matthew, maybe?
Wait a minute. Say it one more time.
Like after the stream ends and it gets uploaded on our channel as a video in the live section, then it does have subtitles, if I'm correct.
I'm not really sure. I think because of the length of the video, like 3 hours long, I don't think it does, but it's possible.
So I would check on that if you have a deaf, deaf family member that's watching and they don't really know what we're saying. I would check and see if there's subtitles that way. That may be a way they can watch. But for the blind, we'll make sure to describe the casualty reports at the beginning of every week to give the total amount of losses instead of just going over the amount lost over the past 24 hours. So with that, I hope that does address it fairly well. And everyone's saying they actually do transcribe it and make subtitles for our streams after they do become videos. So I hope that helps out. So with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And also, we also describe everything in great detail when we're watching a video, because sometimes no one is blind or deaf. Sometimes people are just not looking at the screen and looking at the video, but they are listening to it like a radio show. So that's also why we describe almost everything in great detail. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And also, I saw Gonzalo Gunn saying the live chat, they're both CIA, the bots always say, LOL. Well, look, if we're CIA, I need to receive that paycheck by now, because I haven't been paid in months from the CIA, if that's the case.
Like, we're apparently, like, volunteers for the CIA because we rely on super chats for our only income and support, and it's like, I really wish that they would start paying us, you know what I mean? You know, like, I think, I'm
going to call them up and tell them.
You know what? We need to call up the CIA. Let's call. I'm just kidding. We're not calling the CIA. I'm just making that clear. But anyways, with that, we are also another thing that I've seen some people say about us, Matthew. I mean, we've gotten the whole gamut. We've gotten stuff that's just stupid. I've heard that I'm a lizard person. We've also been called racist, of course, and I believe a Nazi as well. And then we've also been called a communist. Like, we've been called like both things. And then I've seen some people say that we're liberals, we're MAGA. Everyone's like shooting for everything on us. Like, if someone hates us, they just put everything they can under it. Either like he's an anarchist authoritarian or something like that. It's like, those are two opposite things. What the hell are you talking about? Like, you know, it's like, I don't get it. Anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat from Justice Ryan, and thank you very much, Justice Ryan, for that support. He says, Enforcer and Matt, will there be enough time to meld the Polish jet offer with the spring or early June new tank offensive, or will they start the offensive without the jet cover help in time?
The jet cover should arrive well before the tanks get there, because from what we know, the Leopards will be introduced. The Abrams aren't going to be there yet, and they probably won't be there for maybe another month or two, from what we're understanding. And also the Challenger 2s, we haven't heard really anything about at all. Really, I think the tank offensive will be occurring within the window that we've talked about but sometime in between mid-March and late April, most likely. But but the aircraft should get there well beforehand, because they're saying that the 4 MiG-29s will make it there in the next few days, and then there will be about 9 to, I believe, 14 more that will be arriving over the next few months. And the Ukrainians already have pilots that can fly the MiG-29s. It's just a matter of getting them aircraft. So there should be no problem at all in having those aircraft ready to support a ground offensive. It's just that, however, MiG-29s they are not multi-role, they are purely air superiority fighters. So the only way they can support the ground offensive is by interdicting Russian aircraft that are trying to attack the offensive. There's no way they can actually support the units on the ground by giving them fire support against the, I guess you could say, the forces that they're fighting against. So with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, shout out to Gonzalo Guns. I just read off that comment about the CIA, and he put in a $20 super chat, but without a comment. But Gonzalo, thank you very much for that, and also very funny joke. And I guess that counted as a super chat comment. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support, Gonzalo. It helps us to keep this channel running. And we can't emphasize that, well, we can emphasize that a lot less, because regardless of the support, we'll keep the channel running. But the support does help us to keep everything running behind the scenes. And I've got to thank you all for supporting us, because it's the only way we keep this thing running. We haven't been able to create videos lately like I have done in the past, which ran ads, but they didn't make anything. The ads were just there to promote it in the algorithms. And we don't have sponsors or anything else, so y'all support us through y'all support directly. It's the only way we keep this thing running. And I got to thank y'all for that, because, you know, every time I say this, I'm not trying to put pressure on the people who support, like, oh my god, I'm like the only guy who is keeping this thing running. But I want to thank y'all so much, because y'all make this possible and make it able for us to keep this thing rolling. So thank you so much once again, Gonzalez. I guess you were very happy with how we addressed that. And also he said, not from the CIA, wink wink. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again for the support.
Oh, I see. We mentioned we haven't received our paycheck, so Gonzalo from the CIA said, here's 20. Okay.
Wait a minute, hang on. I'm looking at my itemized statement here. We're owed at least $40,000. What the hell?
I know I worked overtime. Like, where's that time and a half?
Oh, man. I'm telling you, oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I got hired by the CIA. They paid me $20 and they told me, hey, get away from here. Oh man, it got worse from there. Oh, and I was told I was given a secret mission. They told me to pull the pin on the grenade and wait. Oh man, it got worse from there. They sent me on a secret mission to Russia, and I had to go meet up with Vladimir Putin. Oh man, the soup tasted kind of poisony. Oh man, it was terrible, absolutely terrible. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from none other than Psyops, who says, by the way, everyone, those wonderful Polish people gave Ukraine some jets today, and can we get some Polish appreciation in the chat? And yes, we can, Psyops. We have some great Poles here on the stream, and the stream wouldn't be the same without the Poles, and we're very glad to have them. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I would say it is a good poll. I like polls. Polls are good. Some people complain about polls. We can't help that. A lot of people really like the polls. I like how I just said that so deadpan, Matthew. I sat there. It was like, some people hate the polls. We can't help that. Some people like the polls, but we hope that everyone likes the polls. We always do that so that way there's something in the live chat for folks to do. If y'all want to discuss what the poll's about with each other, or you want to vote on it and give us your opinion, that's what they're there for. And I've got to say, I love them. I think they're great. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, also, Paula McDonald said pierogies, and my mom has actually become a huge fan of pierogies thanks to y'all. We introduced her to the pierogies that we bought from the store. She cooked them up. She boiled them, and then we put them in the sauce. And they were good. They were so good. We've become big fans of pierogies now. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Paula. And thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have the $13 super chat from Jack Ray, who says, quote-unquote, CIA money, LOL.
Hey! And thank you so much for the support, Jack Ray, for the CIA money. If y'all want to help the CIA, I'm just kidding. But I do thank you so much for
what CIA money does?
What?
You get the CIA money, and then all of a sudden it disappears in your hands. It goes away. That's the CIA money.
Hey! Hey, what the hell happened? What the hell? Where the hell did it go? Oh, wait, we need a congressional hearing to find out where the money went. Where'd the money go? Well, I'm not telling you. Oh, okay. All right, I guess we just won't ever figure that out then. But with that, thank you for the support, Jack. And you know what else happens with CIA money, Matthew?
Yeah, it disappears onto the black budget.
No. It ends up in the hands of the Contras.
Oh, that's right.
Look at that. Oh man, it only cost us about, I don't know, like 4 missiles to the Iranians. I mean, it was a steal of a deal. I mean, the Iranians paid us. I'm just kidding. We're moving on from that because I know someone's about to bring that up and start making it like super political. It's just supposed to be a joke. But with that, we were on to the next one.
And up next, we have another super chat from Psyops. He puts in another $10 donation. I don't know if I can read that one. I don't even have to put that one up for review. I know I can't read that one. But anyways, Psyops, we're going to get a question from the live chat because you always tell me if it's too spicy, go get one from there. So the one sponsored by Psyops goes to, let's see here, Matthew fucking something. I don't know what that says, but anyway.
He just got had. I think he just got had, man. Oh, hey, real quick, before we get onto that one, unnamed agency from an undisclosed location said the check is in the mail. Thank you so much. Hey, we're finally
getting paid.
We're getting paid, finally. Yay! Really quick, we've been activated. We had to get our passports. But still, thank you for the support, unnamed agency, undisclosed location. That's a pretty funny one. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. Now, let's get that live chat for Psyops.
All right, this one goes to Matthew, and I'm not going to say the last name because I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but with all of this talk about the Ukraine offensive happening in the south, do y'all expect it to actually happen there or somewhere else?
I'm going to be honest with you, I think it probably will happen there. It seems as though that's the best route of advance. It's perfectly flat ground, suitable for an offensive. There is a inherent weak point down there that the Ukrainians could exploit, and it has a lot of strategic impact on the war itself. So, in my opinion, I think we probably will see that an offensive does occur in the south. Although Russian forces appear to be getting heavily entrenched in that area, but I'm sure the Ukrainians are coming up with ways to counter those entrenchments and roll over them as fast as possible so that way they can conduct a few breakthroughs and then disorganize the Russian line. So with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well, Matthew, and thank you so much once again, Psyops, for sponsoring that live chat. And, of course, helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Howell Rose, who puts in a 10 and says, Enforcer, Poland has become both an armed camp and a logistics center. This is a project of the Bucharest 9 and NATO, and what say you?
And I thank you for the support. And I would say that's a good point. But we've seen that Poland for so long has been a good military. By no means a bad military. But they've never been big. They're now getting big, really big, huge, as a matter of fact, compared to most European countries. And I think that's great. I think that's good. And I think that's important, definitely, for Poland to become a heavily armed juggernaut of Europe, because they will be the first reaction force, because everyone's going to have to get into Poland. And while it would only be a few days' time before the first waves of forces from Germany, France, and the UK would reach Poland, along with the Italians and Spanish, they are still going to be the first ones there, and it's very important to have a very strong vanguard, so that way they can hold the line until the rest of the reinforcements get there, and then they can push forward with all the rest of them. On top of that, we already know it doesn't take much to blow away the Russians. It's not like it takes a massive army, so the army that the Polish are building up is good enough that not only would they be able to conduct like a feint on a Russian offensive, they would be able to immediately parry it, because I'm trying to make this sound like sword fighting talk. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also real quick, Psyops requested if we could show that video again from Sci-My Rocket of the LSA missile.
No, I'm just kidding, we'll show it. Here we go. You should have listened to Snake Island. LSA. Psyops. That's so cool. And look, you even got your name on missile. You got your name on missile right there. Look at that. And LSA right there too. Man.
LSA.
LSA. LSA. Put an LSA in the live chat to make Matthew's job more difficult. Put an LSA down there. Hey, Matthew, can we get a yeehaw? Come on, Matthew, ham it up. Ham it up. Dang it.
I saw it cut out.
Yeah,
I saw it.
Back it up. Back it up.
Bag it up.
Back it up and do it again. Do it again. There we go. That one picked up. It picked up. So with that, and also, I hope you enjoyed seeing that video again, Psyops. And Psyops said, oh wait, I can't read that one off. You put it in the live chat. I was about to read that off, but yeah, we can't. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Pinay Vet, who puts in a 10 and says the U.S. never signed the 1936 Montreux Convention. Why is the U.S. Navy not patrolling in the Western Black Sea and Bulgarian, Romanian, or Turkish waters? Only the USS Nitz, February 3rd, south of the Bosphorus.
And let me pull up the Montreux Agreement. Montreux Agreement.
Badly misspelled.
Badly misspelled it. Oh man, it was terrible, terrible. Let's see. Often simply known as the Montreux Convention, is an international agreement governing the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits in Turkey. Let's see. It was signed at the Montreux Palace. Wow, dang, it's a nice hotel. It went into effect in 1936. Addressing the long-running Straits question over who should control the strategically vital link between the Black and Mediterranean seas. Why the hell was that even a question? It's in the middle of Turkish waters. Of course it's Turkish. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. But anyways, here's the Dardanelles. Here's the Bosphorus. Finally found out that it's not all the Bosphorus. It's not all the Dardanelles. This is the Bosphorus. This is the Dardanelles. And then there's the Sea of Marmalade in the middle. I'm just kidding, it's Marmara. But anyways, let's see here. Let's see. The original signatories was pretty much everyone but America. But at the same time, does anyone think that the United States is going to violate the sovereignty of Turkey and send its navy straight through? You know, just cause. It is a NATO member. That would cause a massive diplomatic row. It'd probably be faced with international condemnation, considering that some of the larger countries in the Western world, like France, the UK, Japan, among Australia, Bulgaria, Romania, Yugoslavia is dead. The Soviet Union is also dead. But you know, that wouldn't really bode well with them, considering they're signatories of it, and so the U.S. probably wouldn't want to do it, because it could cause a little bit of a schism. So, I would have to say, while we didn't sign it originally, the reason why we're not in there is because, one, we don't want to violate their sovereignty, and two, we don't have any U.S. naval bases there, and if we get stuck in the Black Sea, where do they go? You know, like let me say this, let me go through this hypothetical, and you'll probably see why they're not doing this. They go in, screw you, Turkey, we're going to, you know, just forget your sovereignty over the Dardanelles and Bosphorus, sail straight through the Dardanelles, straight through the Bosphorus, into the Black Sea. They show up here, Black Sea Fleet goes south, hugs the coast of Turkey, and then blocks them off at Istanbul. They're stuck. There's no way they can get out unless they go through a slugfest with the Russian fleet to try and make it back through the Bosphorus and then the Dardanelles, and then back out into the open Mediterranean where they can find a naval base. That's probably why they're not there, and on top of that, it isn't that strategically important for the United States, because the United States can really stop anything the Russians do internationally, even in the Aegean Sea or just in the Mediterranean at large. They can stop them. I forgot what this like little passing here is called in between Tunisia and Sicily, but they could stop them here, and also they could just stop them in front of the Suez Canal if they wanted to. So we got them caged in fairly well. It's just that we don't really need to go in there for that, and there's some inherent risks if the Russian fleet was to maneuver a certain way, and then we got to go through a slugfest to get the Navy out. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I thank you so much once again for support, of course, in my opinion. And with that, we were on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to BC Skyman once again. He puts in a $10 donation, but he doesn't leave a comment this time, sadly. But BC, good to see you again. And also, thank you again for the continued support and helping to keep this thing running. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Psyops once again, who says, this super chat comes from the one and only Paula McDonald. How long can Russia be expected to fight with its current losses? I know they have a large population, but it's mainly the elderly.
As long as they have money or as long as they have guns, they will be able to keep the war going. If they run out of guns, the war ends. If they run out of money, the war ends. The people side of things really isn't the issue, because the Russian government does not care about the people. They consider them to just be expendable. And, you know, for the large part, we've seen that they kind of are treated as expendable, and they kind of end up being expendable to the Russians. And Matthew went, well, and so I'm waiting for that well.
And I said, oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you said, well. I was like, what do you mean, well? Man, they throw them into blenders. But anyways, that's the way the war will end. They do have a significantly older population, but they'll just go into the they'll just go into the nursing homes and go, hey, how are you doing? And then they'll sit there and go, the Soviet Union is so beautiful. I just saw Leonid on the TV yesterday. And they'll go, oh, yes, you did. Hey, guess what? Your military service has come up. You just turned 20. What? No way. Yes, we have to go to the front lines right now. Oh my god, we're going to kill the Americans or something like that. That's probably how they'll, like, the conversation will go in the old folks' home. But yes.
Walk forward with stick.
Walk forward with the shovel, the old shovel from the 1850s, and try and beat them with it or something, you know. Good luck. But that's what they'll do. So it's really more about the money or them running out of weapons. If they run out of one of those, the war will end. Until then, they'll just keep on letting the bodies stack up until it's over. So really, killing the Russians and blowing up their vehicles is more about making sure that they run out of usable vehicles eventually and usable equipment, instead of really taking out the soldiers themselves. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support, Paula, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope I addressed that fairly well, in my opinion.
And I think Christian Cruz summed it up just right. He said in all caps, biomass.
You know, there are some biomass electricity plants out there, you know what I mean?
Not really.
Well, you know, I mean, you've never heard of a biomass power plant? You never heard of one of these?
I'm assuming you're not referring to what I think you're referring to, and it's something else.
No, it's biomass like this, Matthew.
Oh.
It's like wood and stuff. What the hell do you think it was? A dead body plant?
My mind was racing through all the possibilities.
well, I'm sure if you've been in college long enough, Matthew, you've heard of the body farm or whatever the hell it is.
No, I hadn't heard of that. Sounds weird.
Oh, well, it's a good thing you haven't heard of it then. All right, and with that, we are on to the next one while I close down the Steam self-update thing.
Oh. But anyways, up next, we have a $10 super chat from Unnamed Agency, undisclosed location. Very spooky, very strange. But thank you very much for the support. Check us in the mail. Slava Ukraine.
And I thank you so much for the support. And that means that I can finally stop eating these saltine crackers, because the pizza fund, it dried up a while ago. Now we only get support to the coffee fund. So we've been consisting off of coffee grounds and coffee for quite a long time. And I thank you so much once again for the support, because that means I can finally stop eating these saltine crackers. And so with that, thank you so much once again, undisclosed name, undisclosed location, for the support. And we'll be looking forward to that check in the mail. You know where to send it, to the P.O. Box. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from WL, who says, Poland sets up a paradigm for the rest of the West. And you know what, before you answer that one, paradigm made me think of somebody that we know that pronounced it paradigm.
Oh, yeah. Well, wait a minute.
They said paradigm for the longest time until somebody said, hey, wait a minute, I think there's paradigm. Oh. And
who was that?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Let me do this real quick, Matthew. The liberal media, they're trying to perpetrate a paradigm. Oh. But anyways, I gotta stop that one now.
The frogs.
They're turning the freaking frogs a little weird, you know. But anyways, oh man, I gotta stop that one right there though, because you know if I do that one too much, some YouTube moderator is gonna go, we gotta execute her. You know, whip out the axe and just chop her head off. But anyways, you know, I gotta tell you, I gotta thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I said I can't do this one, but jack nabbit, I'm not letting the paradigm get control of me. But I'm just kidding. Anyways, I would say that I've got to be honest. Let me pull this up real quick, because paradigm is used so much that I've really forgot the meaning of the word. Like, what does it really mean? A typical pattern of something. A model. And can you reread the chat again now that we have the definition of a paradigm?
Poland sets up a paradigm for the rest of the West.
You gotta set up, Poland set up a paradigm for the rest of the West. They're trying to militarize and get a whole bunch of guys. I'm telling you, that's exactly what they're doing. You watch and learn. It's a Ruby Ridge.
But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And I would agree. I guess in that sense, with the actual definition being seen instead of it just being used as a buzzword, I would say they probably are being put out as an exemplar to the rest of Europe as to what their military should look like at some point. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, oh man, I saw Adrian Chan say, isn't a paradigm like 20 cents? Pair of dimes.
Oh,
I was like, that's a good one, man. I saw that. I was like, oh man, that's a gold one. I wish I thought about that one, man. I wish I did. But with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. I would agree with that.
All right, and up next,
Also,
we have a $10 super chat. Oh, yeah.
One more thing before we move on to that one. I noticed that impression didn't get a lot of laughs, sadly. It looks like no one really laughed at it. It's like, But anyways, we're on to the next one.
Oh, that's the point, Sobs. That's the point. It's edgy. But anyways, up next, we have a $10 super chat from Psyops. Speaking of the devil, he says, Andrew just loves Oklahoma. Better look at the best state in Google Maps.
And thank you so much once again for the support, Psyops. Oklahoma is the biggest bird. I'm the biggest bird. I'm the biggest bird. I'm the biggest. We're going to go to Broken Arrow. Calling in a Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow starts nuking everything. But anyways, let's go down to Broken Arrow. Let's go look at the center of the street. Right here. Near the Arby's and the Papa John's. I got to tell you, Arby's, I don't know how they're selling all that beef for $5. They always say we have the meats, but where are they getting all of that meat for $5? It's a little too cheap.
Yeah, where's all that meat coming from?
A little questionable. I say horses, but there's a Papa John's.
I don't know.
There's a
258 Papa.
I like it when you call me Big Papa. 258 PAP. Anyways, not a bad place.
Cringe.
I mean, why is...
Oh, there's one of those Jeep Gladiator, hideous-looking, the monstrosity, devil-looking vehicles back there.
Where?
Where'd it go? Wait a minute, go back one.
Dude, you're crazy, man. Crazy.
No, go back. I saw it. I know I did. I just looked at it.
It's probably like Twilight Zone or something.
Nah, man, go back. I know I saw one.
Dude, we're about to go back to even further. We started in the middle of the square. We started right here.
Oh, go forward one. Oh, no, hell no. I know I just saw one right there.
Y'all, Matthew's going crazy. Call him out. Call him out. He's going...
I know I saw it. I know it did.
You're about to turn into William Shatner on the Twilight Zone. There's something on the wing, I swear. Let me get the cop's gun and show you. But oh, man. But, not a bad place. Not a bad place, Broken Arrow is. Broken Arrow Hills. Let's see. The Rose District. Walmart Supercenter. Goodwill. Houston Street, Academy. Oh man, like whenever you look at America, Matthew, is always the same. Academy, Walmart, a Jeep, Dodge, Ram, Fiat store, and Chrysler as well. All in one. It's an all-in-one. Bass Pro Shops. Oh wait a minute.
It's the same everywhere you go.
YouTube didn't like me pointing out that all the stores in America are the same, so now they've throttled our connection. So let's give it a second. I'm going to use this time to eat a saltine cracker while we patiently wait for the connectivity to come back. Watch, I'm about to flip us all to the Matrix. Boom, is the Matrix. Look at that. We're looking like through Streamception. We can see all the way to the 1001 back there in the background.
Man, your screen like showing this like real like trippy effect going on. Like it's grainy and it looks like it's like a hazy drone footage.
Well, maybe the ghost of Reaper Past is trying to talk to us. Oh my God! Did you see how brown the Arkansas River is?
Yeah, the Arkansas River. It looks like I'm on like LSD or something right now. It's all over the place.
Dude, yikes! Arkansas.
Trippy, bro.
What?
Trippy, bro.
Bruh. Trippy. And the
What the hell?
connectivity is not coming back.
Why does that sound pervy?
And that sounds kind of pervy. I was trying to sound like one of those like surfer dudes. You know what I mean? Oh, wait a minute! Oh! Oh!
What the hell? Hell no.
Oh my god! They're here! They're here, man! He's here, I sense it. But man. Alright, anyway.
You know what the main product is that the supermercado sells?
What? Snacks. Oh.
Nice wet wipes.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
For the number 2.
Oh, yeah. Usually, Matthew, I thought they were always a bait and tackle shop. Wait a minute, hang on. Let me really get into this real quick. Hopefully everyone can hear it. Take it, I can't do it. I was about to do that stupid redneck ham boning thing, where you slap your leg and then you like slap your chest and everything. I couldn't do it right. But anyways, with that,
is the lag finally over though?
I think it is, because it looks like everyone's fine now again. So let me check. According to OBS, it's not, but we're getting a proper kilobytes per second where it should be normal. So we're just going to continue on like it is. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Freedom Principle, who says, do you think the Russians may be thinking of creating a super weapon by putting a robo-soldier into the Tramp drone? They appear to be the same level of tech and ingenuity.
Yes, I would say that's probably what they're going to be doing in the future. I would not doubt that at all. In fact, I would count on it. So put your bets on that. I'm sure they'll put Robo-Soldier on the ATV in the Tramp, and they'll see if they can come up with something even worse. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Marcus, who says, sadly, it's not true that Russians can't travel. Over 200,000 have visited Thailand since November 2022, as well as many other destinations in Asia, for example, Bali.
Yeah, well, I thank you for the support, but when I say travel, I mean travel to most places like America or Europe or Turkey. Well, I think they actually can still travel to Turkey, I think. But they really can't travel to anywhere here. That's what I mean. Because they're like, oh, they're so envious. We could travel everywhere. We have such good relations. But they really don't, because almost all their neighbors don't have good relations with them. So with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Roy CC07. Who says the U.S. military can operate manned flights over the Taiwan Strait and assert FONOPS, but not over the Black Sea.
Is that a question or a statement?
I think that was more of a statement.
If it is a statement, I thank you for sharing that with us. We did know that they did that in the Taiwan Strait, but that's interesting here. They cannot do that in the Black Sea. So with that, I thank you so much once again for support and sharing that information with us. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And I think he was pointing out like the hypocrisy of it. I don't think he was saying like it's a fact or anything.
Oh, Matthew, I was about to answer that one. Matthew. You got him.
I got him. I just timed him out, though. He can come back.
Let's see. He said, what's with the clickbait title? MiGs on Weston, and they're getting less than 5 of them. No, they're not. They're giving 11 to 19. They're getting 4 of them in 3 days. You didn't read right. You need to learn how to read this, son. All right? Go back to school.
Also,
learn.
That's the way all the news outlets have described it as well, so everybody can't be wrong.
Yeah, and also, they are Western because they're coming from Poland, which is now a part of NATO, which means it's a Western country. So a Western country is sending their aircraft, meaning Western aircraft. Sorry, I can't help that you don't know how to read. It's literally on, like this one I'm going to have to do the whole due diligence on right here, because that one was just... I'm sorry, man. I don't mean to be rude, but that's goofy. Because when you sit there and look at the thumbnail, let me go to my channel and go click on the thumbnail. If you look at the thumbnail, it shows a Mig-29. Like, what the hell? It's not an F-16. How in the world did you come in here with that kind of misunderstanding? It says, Ukraine gets Western jets. And then you see right here, Ukraine will be getting Western jets for the first time as Polish representatives announced that they will be shipping several Mig-29 fighter jets. It's all spelled out for you right there. How in the world, like you're going to come in here and say it's clickbait? This was as clearly advertised as possible. There's no way that you could have misunderstood this. It's literally in the description, it's literally in the thumbnail, and it's a Western country giving a jet. That's what it is. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and no clickbait. But anyways, up next we have a $5 super chat from Stray Cat 241, who says if the pilot of the U.S. drone would have pulled up, I pulled up and crashed into the Russian plane, and the plane went down, what do you think would have happened?
Oh, it would have been a huge diplomatic row because it would have been a manned aircraft. Unmanned aircraft always cause a little bit of less of a heated exchange, but if it's a manned aircraft that was hit, that always creates a heated exchange because it was a citizen of that country that was operating that craft, so then it looks like you were endangering their life or potentially trying to kill them, so it holds a lot more weight. So it most likely would have led to a very serious situation for sure. And so with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for your support, and I hope I answered that fairly well.
And the next one goes to Ole Wolansky, who puts in a $5 donation and says, great job doing your best Mystery Science Theater 3000 impression for the Crux bit. That channel must be sympathetic to their comrades' plight.
I don't know what's up with Crux. I never heard of them before until today, and I guess that's really the crux of the issue.
Hey, get out of here.
Get out of here. Okay. And I'm back.
Oh, welcome back.
You said get out of here, Matthew. I was just trying to do what you said. But anyways, I would say that was... thank you for enjoying the impression I did there, kind of. It was kind of an impression. And also, that was a really goofy way to word that thing, because how in the world does that make him look like they compare? The thing is backwards as hell. You can just tell by the way it looks. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to James Dunn, who puts in a 5 and says, I have an A+ certification, and that is late 80s tech.
And thank you for the support. And also, I guess he's saying that the T90M was made of 80s tech?
He says he has an A+ certification, and that is late 80s tech.
I thank you for sharing that with us. I don't know what that's in relation to, or if it's just a statement, but I do thank you for the support, and very interesting to hear. My mom was also a lot into computers when they were first coming around, I guess, you know, the personal computers, back in the 80s and 90s, but she never really got any, like, degree or any, like, I guess you could say, qualifying, stuff to say she was in that profession, but she was really into it. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Crafty Appy, who puts in a $5 donation and says, thanks for the good energy and good vids. LSA to the rescue, helping me stay awake and find an extra gear to finish a work project and grab a chat question.
And thank you so much for the support, and also enjoying the stream so much, Crafty Happy. It means a lot to us that people do like it. We try our best to make sure that it's interesting, informative, and entertaining, and I'm glad that we were able to meet all of those criteria. And so, thank you so much once again for the support. We will make sure to grab a live chat.
All right, and this live chat question goes to Silver Earth, who says, Matt, was the grain deal renewed? It expires on the 18th.
We have not heard about the grain deal being renewed. We did hear that they extended it by like 7 days, but that was to this point, which will be the 18th, which is today in Ukraine's time. So, well, actually, that'll be tomorrow in Ukraine's time. But
didn't Russia offer to extend it by 60 days and Ukraine rejected it?
No, they did extend it 60 days, and it ended up falling on this day, I believe. But beyond that, there has been no...
I think they offered to extend it again, and they rejected it.
Why would they reject it? There must have been some kind of terms that the Russians were saying, like, if you lay down your arms and unconditionally surrender, then we'll extend it 60 days or something like that.
You'd have to do a quick research on that one, but I think they rejected it, but I can't remember the reason.
Let's try and do a quick search on that. Russian, well, let's see. Ukraine grain news.
Grain from Ukraine.
Let's see here. Turkey seeks 120-day extension of the grain deal.
Bunch in Ukraine rejects grain deal. See if that brings up anything.
let's see here. Let's see here. So this is from Al Jazeera. Ukrainian minister says 60-day extension contradicts the document signed by guarantors. Hopefully that's pronounced correctly. Turkey and the United Nations. Let's see. Delegation extend the Ukrainian, but only for a further 60 days. The United Nations said it knows the Russian part of Ukrainian infrastructure. Said that a 60-day extension contradicts the document signed by Turkey and the UN, but did not reject the proposal. The agreement involves at least 120 days of extension. Therefore, Russia's position to extend the deal only for 60 days contradicts the document signed by Turkey and the UN. We're waiting for the official position of the UN and Turkey as the guarantors of the initiative. So it appears that they didn't reject it, and they were saying that they were allowed 120 days instead of 60. So with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. We are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Joseph M. Sika, who puts in a 5 and says, "Hey guys, I got a good super chat tonight. Why in the world wouldn't the Ukrainians send those underwater drone explosive subs to the crash site?"
Good question. We don't really know if we got them. And that's the thing. We've never seen that they got those little underwater exploding drones. If they do have them, it may be that it's too far of a journey for them to travel. Maybe they have a shorter range, and that's why they're not out there. Once again, YouTube's telling me we're having connectivity issues, and it seems like we are. We're just going to power through it at this point. But it may be that they don't have the range or the Ukrainians don't have them, one or the other. That's most likely the two that I would fall on. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Joseph. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Joseph M. Sika once again. He continues his super chat from the last one. I didn't see that a second ago, but let me read it in its entirety. He says, why in the world wouldn't the Ukrainians send those underwater drone explosive subs to the crash site of the U.S. drone to do some damage to the Russians? Do these underwater explosive suicide drones even exist since being announced like 3 months ago?
We don't know if they exist, the underwater exploding drones, because we've never really seen any proof of them. And for that reason, it's kind of up in the air as to whether they really do exist or not. And we were told that they were supposed to be given from another country to Ukraine. And then that begs the question, how did they get to Ukraine? And we really don't have any answers to that. So from what I understand, it may be that they don't have a range, they either don't exist, and that's the reason why we don't see them out there where the Russian recovery fleet is. Because if they could destroy the Kommuna, which is the largest recovery ship and the oldest one in the Russian fleet, they would be in a fairly good stance to screw over the Russian Navy for the rest of the war, if they ever went outside of Sevastopol port. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Philip Fixes, who puts in a 2 and says, are Western MiGs modified for Western weapons?
The Western MiGs, I don't really know if they were. Let's pull it up. Polish Mig-29. And now the news is being flooded with all of this. Nice. We'll go to AP News where I got the article today, and we'll read it to see if they give any details. Let's see. They are in the last years of their functioning, but they are in good working condition. They do not want to say whether other countries will follow suit. Let's see here. On Wednesday, some other countries said they pledged MiGs to Kyiv. Poland and Slovakia indicated they were ready to hand over their planes, only part of a wider international deal. Let's see here, F-16s, MiGs, for Russia's. Ukraine has several dozen MiG-29s. How many remain in service after a year of fighting? Let's see here. Sadly, it doesn't say anything about whether they're upgraded or not. So let's just pull up Polish MiG-29 upgrade.
And we're lagging like hell.
I know, we're lagging bad. So we'll give it a minute. We'll wait. Well, I said we're going to power through. Now we're waiting. So I'll go to Wikipedia in the meantime and get this set up and try and find an answer. Let me know if anyone says that we're back to normal, because then I'll probably try and get the answer then.
Not seen anything yet.
German, Slovakian Air Force, Romanian, TSMT. That's definitely not it. Algeria and Yemen, Air Fleet. Peruvian Air Force, Ukrainian modernization of the MiG, further Ukrainian modernization of the MiG. Let's see here. Poland. There we go. Polish Air Force. Let's go down and see what kind of variants of MiG that they have in service. See here, the Polish Air Force. The only remaining combat aircraft were the Mig-29 and the Su-22. And this year, they did some stuff with them. They talked about getting some Gripens, but then they didn't. And there was a Tu-154 that crashed, killing the president of Poland? Wow, yeah, they did kill the president of Poland in 2010. Wow, that's wild. Let's see here, design to supply, blah, blah, blah. AGM-158, MiG-29.
I think we might be back.
I think we might be back. Maybe. Yeah, it looks like we should be back. Lethal aid. It still doesn't really say. Variant is actually the MiG-29A UB. So let's go and look at that one. MiG-29A and the UB. So they got the twin-seat training model, and then they have the export version that they use in their Air Force as well. So I don't know if they really were modified, because I can't really get any clear information about their current status. It seems that everything we get about them is kind of dated, at least in the 2000s, the early 2000s. So with that, I hope that answers that question the best we can, and thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from SJ Caddy. He says, Norway will start training Ukrainian soldiers this spring in Norway. Sniper, medic, and squad leaders, 100 soldiers at a time, from Austevoll, Norway.
Oh, that's really cool. And where is that again? Austevoll?
Austevoll. Spelled with a Austevoll.
Can you spell that for me?
Austevoll.
There we go. So let's see where this is. This is Democracy Manifest. This is in, like, the middle of a fjord. Like on a little island. That's really cool. Is this where they're from, or where they're doing the training?
I think that's where they're from.
It's beautiful. I'll say that. Looks nice. I like it. Norway's a very beautiful country. That I will say. And also, really cool to think you live in the middle of a fjord. Moving on from that, though, that is incredibly cool to hear that the Norwegians will be training Ukrainians in the future and hopefully giving them some really top-notch training. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dupper Bob, as well as Dark Warrior 137. We also have a 2 from CA Lags, and we're lagging out again, it looks like. CA Lags said, from the chat, please. And we will grab one from the chat. And thank you all 3 for the support. And before we move on to that one in the live chat, we're going to hold up and see if we can try to get through this lag. You know what? I have a feeling that this is like a DDoS or something, because this is so consistent and we're not having any internet problems. Everything on my end showing perfect. It's something between us and YouTube interfering.
Yeah, because look at how quickly my computer is pulling up stuff on my end right here. Like, it's like flinging from page to page, just going so quickly. Like, the internet's great, and then OBS is over here having well, it's not really having an issue. It says that it's got a great kilobytes per second rate that should be optimal, but then it's also saying that we're not getting a good connection, and we aren't getting a good connection. So I don't know what the hell's wrong with it. It is.
Yeah, I think we're being screwed with again.
Yeah. Call them out. Call them out. So I guess we'll just try and wait it out. But if we can't,
I think we're on and off lagging again, according to a few people.
We're gonna try and press on then, y'all, and hopefully.
And shout out to Dubsy Dabster for putting in a 2.
Hey! And thank you so much for the support, Dubsy Dabster. And let's get to that live chat that we were supposed to get to.
All right, and the live chat question goes to DSLOK, who says, are the MiG-29 an upgrade to what Ukraine is currently using, or more of the same?
The MiG-29s are mostly more of the same. They're not that great compared to the ones the Ukrainians already have. They're average. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are in our live chat segment now, so thank you all once again for that support. And see a lot of people saying that the lag is rough. Damn. So, geez, I gotta say, when the lag starts happening like this, it is very irritating. But it's not going to cause us to stop streaming. So, whatever Russians screwing around with our stream, you're just kind of wasting your time. But you will piss us off, though. That's for sure.
All right, and let's get to the live chats.
All right, and the Morse code tonight was solved by JP's RCs, Rumpelstiltskin, Cfay, Cliff Simonson, and Mark Hodges. They said the Morse code says, "Oh, bliat, Ivan, they fly now. Slava LSA and Slav Ukraine. Igor!"
And that's the sound of money. And y'all are absolutely correct. No, absolutely right. That is the Morse code message, and now the Ukrainians fly again in Polish MiG-29s. And so with that, thank y'all for deciphering the Morse code message. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And this question goes to Roy Hughes, who says, when will US DoD put remote-controlled blow-up systems in our secret hardware so bad guys do not get our crap?
I think they probably already have. So, from what we know, it probably is something that's already there. They're just not really letting us know about it. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to O-Tubes, who says, did you hear that us Aussies are buying a heap of missiles from the U.S.?
I did not, and that is fairly interesting here. Probably just a part of a normal, I guess you could say, armament purchase, to make sure there's enough munitions, but still fairly interesting to hear. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Franco Lacono, who says, Matt, have you seen the CNN report about Chinese-made drone shot down, which was sold by Alibaba? And yes, I have. And if you follow our Twitter, you will see that we tweeted about that, I think earlier this morning or last night, one or the other. But
and it was
yes,
also
it's a Mugen.
And it was also in today's news as well. So we covered
Yes, it was. It was in today's news.
Yeah, we covered it in both places, the Twitter and the news. So we did hear about it. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one. But before we get on to the next one, a lot of y'all are saying it's good now, it's not good, and y'all are trying to give us live updates, and I thank y'all for that. But sadly, there's usually a 30-second delay in between what y'all are watching and what's happening. So while you're saying it's good now, you're saying what was good 30 seconds ago. And when y'all catch up to where we are 30 seconds in the future, then it may not be good anymore. So sadly, we just have to try and power through. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And shout out to Dark Warrior 137 for throwing in a 2 once again, and thank you very much for that support, and we appreciate it very much. And up next, we have a question from Momoto, who says, what does a Russian say when his internet is down?
Shit. Is that what he says?
No, he says internet.
Oh, that's a pretty good one. Also, someone said, could y'all get better Wi-Fi? If you can hear me right now, watch this. Look, I type in hello, click that, boom, pulls up immediately. Our Wi-Fi is fine.
Hello.
It's someone DDoSing us. That's what it is. And so we're having to try
somebody's
and power
screwing
through.
with us for real.
So with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Opus, who says the right-wing Danish Swedish. Oh God. Let's see. Is that political?
Yes, it is.
Oh God.
But let's see. I do thank you for the support, Opus, and I would love to address that, but it is inherently political because it's aligning it with a political affiliation and saying that they're doing a thing. So we can't really address that, but I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because without folks' support like you, we wouldn't be able to run this thing. But I hope you understand that we're trying to keep politics out of it, so that way we don't end up having a political fight in the chat, and also a political fight amongst the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I don't know if the lag's over or not. It's still not over. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and I saw Rob GRT say in the chat that USA just launched a Global Hawk into the Black Sea, and it should be there in a few hours. Now, if that is true, I'll be interested to see what happens, and that would be in direct contradiction to what the U.S. said in a statement today. So who the hell knows anymore, but we'll find out. But thank you for the information. And up next, we have a question from Montern, who says, what is the legality of Russia trying to recover the U.S. Reaper drone?
It's in international waters, so I think, if I'm correct, in international waters, it's kind of like a finder's keeper's rule. If you find it, you get, I think, salvage rights to it. But I don't.
Yeah, I think salvage rights or whoever reaches it first.
Yeah, so I think they are working under that kind of law, or at least that kind of right on the high seas. So with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Dr. Duck Taper, who says, how many smart guided dumb bombs can a fighter jet carry?
Smart guided dumb bombs, as many as it can hold, and it depends on each aircraft. A Mig-29 or an Su-27 probably wouldn't be able to carry any of them because they carry, at the heaviest, Fab 500s, which are actually quite small compared to Western bombs. For an F-16, I think it could probably carry about 9 of them at the most. That's like just carrying those alone. But then again, take that with a grain of salt, because I'm making that estimation off the top of my head. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Joseph M. Sika, who says, send those underwater drone explosive subs to the crash site of the U.S. drone to do some damage to the Russians, ?
We actually just discussed that a little second ago. We don't know if those even really exist, because we never really seen hardcore video proof of them ever, and they also may not have the range to reach them if they do exist, so that may be why they're not using them right now. But beyond that, if they could get a ship out there that could launch those little things towards that fleet, that would probably help out a great deal. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Sean Koshan, who says, when do you think the Ukraine will launch its spring offensive and mop the floor with the Russians?
Sometime in between mid-April to late May. That's most likely going to be the timetable we're looking at, because the Rasputitsa should have ended by then, and on top of that, they will be looking at favorable conditions in every other regard as well, for the most part, because it'll give them enough preparation time. So I'd say sometime in between mid-April to late May. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Richard Philpott, who says, General Milley said there were no naval surface vessels on the Black Sea, and does that mean there are any subs lurking around, maybe? And no, that just means General Milley hasn't called his Chinese buddies yet, but go ahead.
Can you reread that question again, actually?
Yeah. General Milley said there were no naval surface vessels on the Black Sea, and does that mean there are subs lurking around, maybe?
Probably not, because they would probably have to surface to pass through the Bosphorus, and that would be visibly seen. How deep is the Bosphorus? That's the good question. How deep is the Bosphorus? See, the Bosphorus, 19 miles long, maximum width of 2.5 miles. Let's see. Its depth varies from 120 to 408 feet in midstream. So a submarine could mostly travel underwater in the Bosphorus, but you have to remember that there's a heavy amount of traffic there. They really couldn't, because they would probably collide with something, so they would have to surface to pass through, so it would become very clear that there is a submarine that's moving into the Black Sea, and the Russians would probably know about that. So with that, I hope I addressed that question fairly well, at least based off of the knowledge we can see, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ziggy, who says, check out the MQ-28A Ghost Bat drone.
And the name of that drone again is what?
MQ-28A Ghost Bat drone.
A Ghost Bat drone. Oh, we've seen this before. We've actually clicked on the link. I forgot what we learned about it. It's like
it goes meow.
Yeah, that thing goes shoo, and it goes flying away. Pretty cool vehicle, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot said about it at all. But still pretty neat nonetheless. I like it. Pretty cool. And so with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Dark Eagle, who says the Russians don't have an advantage, but neither does the USA have an advantage. Nobody wants the world destroyed, or do we?
Boom, boom, boom.
They're the paradigm. They're trying to destroy us all.
But I would say no.
They're turning the frogs, sir.
No one's wanting to destroy it because everyone's scared of dying, which is a great incentive into ensuring that nothing gets destroyed. So I don't think anyone's actively trying to destroy it. However, one thing I will say is we do have an advantage over the Russians in a conventional war. In a nuclear war, it evens the playing field, but we would stomp them in a conventional one, that's for sure. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Duana Campin, who says, have you noticed that in the fake drone video, the drone carried a bomb, and it would have obstructed the camera view toward the propeller?
Good point. That's another thing that was in that video. It was carrying that big pod. You know, the pod, Matthew, the pod. It was carrying the pod with the aliens in it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you got a good point.
I don't
So
get it.
okay, let me go pull up the video. Let's see here, YouTube. You know, you were talking about them yesterday, Matthew, the giant pods that sit on the bottom of the drone.
Yeah, but what about aliens? How'd that fit in?
Well, you were acting like you didn't know what the pod was, so I was saying, like the pod, like the aliens are in the little pod, like in the Alien movie. Like right there.
Oh, okay, that's why I didn't get it. Okay.
All right, I guess that one fell flat. So with that, we were on to the next one. Also, Jay Lassing said, the video is barely watchable. I hope you all see this because we're trying to tell y'all, as an experienced electrician, I can tell you your Wi-Fi modem needs an upgrade. Well, I can tell you this, for an entire year we've been running on this Wi-Fi modem. It's worked perfectly fine, and it would make no sense that it just falls out flat now and dies. This is most likely some kind of a DDoS issue or something similar. But with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right, and this one goes to First and Last, who says, did you guys hear that Assad is calling for a permanent and expanded Russian military presence in Syria, reported today by RT, and what are your thoughts?
I have not heard about that. I would not doubt that, though, because Assad is supported by the Russians, and having an increased Russian presence there means that they may finally be able to put down the SDF and the Kurds that we support in Syria and finally unite their country again under the dictatorship of Assad. So I wouldn't doubt that at all. And so with that, I hope we answered that question fairly well, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who asked the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that viewer is Richard Rody, who says, did you see the Japanese self-defense force has decided to ditch attack helicopters and replace them with drones based on what they have seen in Ukraine?
I have not heard about that. That's a fairly interesting move, and I don't know if that's a sound move yet or not, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see in the future if it is or isn't. Drones can't really carry the payload that a helicopter can. That usually it's a lot lighter than a helicopter, but at the same time they are cheaper and they keep people out of harm's way that operate them. So I guess there is a lot of benefits there, and maybe that's what they're seeing, but that's news to me, and I hadn't heard that today. So with that, I hope I answered that question fairly well, and it's the end of tonight's stream. After getting DDoS attacked for about the last hour of it, we've finally come to the end. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and if you're watching this channel for the first time, I can promise you, this isn't something that normally happens. This is something that is quite rare. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We run this stream 6 days a week, every single day of the week except for Mondays, and we run it at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can always count on us to be here covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, and of course, Slava Ukraini.
And Slava Ukraine. Herom Slava.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть на